OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 on this Tuesday morning. You're welcome along to OTB AM. Good show lined up for you over the next couple of hours. We're going to have David Meyler with us to talk football. Emmet Brennan will be with us to tell us why he should be on the Taylor Serrano undercard. And Jamie Carr is a Manchester City underage coach from Dublin who is doing an ultramarathon in the Sahara and rowing the Atlantic all into 1 year. So he'll be with us later on in the show to talk through why he's doing it. But most importantly, for the duration of the show, another Northside Dubliner, Kenny Cunningham, is with us. How are you, Kenny?
Oh, good on. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Last time you were with us was in and around another really important holiday as well. You were getting very excited for Christmas. You're joining us in the aftermath of one of the most important holidays there is in Valentine's Day. How did you mark the big day yesterday?
I suppose by making a conscious decision not to mark the occasion, unfortunately. So yeah, no, I've never bought into the kind of Valentine's gig, I must admit.
Not for you.
No, it's a scam, innit? It's a scam.
Was there ever any year that you were tempted to be like, you know what, I'm going to let Hallmark take over here?
I'm not exactly sure why you're. Yeah, there's pressure, isn't there? It's too much pressure.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and it's too forced, isn't it? Too contrived.
Yeah. A
bit like Christmas, actually. No, I'm kidding. Never say that about Christmas.
See, this is interesting. I mean, there was. I'm not sure, was I surprised or just kind of interested in the fact that you're a big Christmas guy. So this is why I went this way immediately this morning. I thought that that you were a sucker for a holiday.
Yeah. I'm surprised you said that, actually. Like, in terms of Christmas, I like the Christmas period, all right, but I wouldn't say, like I said, I'm not one for bouncing around and, grabbing presents and that type of thing. Not in a manic way, but yeah, no, Christmas all suffer, but now forget it. Valentine's, move on.
Valentine's right at the bottom of the holiday list then. Everything else ahead of it.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I think that's actually a good take. I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you. I just wasn't expecting that at all. Like, what we often have around this time of year is people doing lists about some of the greatest bromances in football, and great strike partners together, great centre back partners together. If I had to press you for
what's the difference between a great striking partnership and a bromance in terms of on the pitch? What would be the difference? What are we talking about here?
I guess there is no difference, to be honest with you. Could you call it?
Are you talking about on an emotional level as well, as opposed to having a natural...
Yeah, let's go with that.
So I suppose so the kind of Sheringham Cole partnership United would have been a great partnership from a football and technical point of view. Two players really complemented each other because of their different qualities, but by all accounts never spoke to each other, couldn't stand each other. Like, so I suppose that wouldn't be your... That's not the kind of bromance that
That's a partnership.
That's a partnership.
Yeah, that's not a bromance.
It's a form of partnership. What we experience most mornings were.
Well, we are very much a partnership. When I throw that phrase out to you, football bromance, who is the other half of your number one football bromance?
The
other half of the Kenny Cunningham.
Those kind of bromances would happen higher up the pitch. I mean, if you're talking the striking partnerships here, it's in their DNA.
It's the centre back partnership.
There's not that going on in the centre defence now.
Is that not the most important place for a bromance to exist? The heart of your defence?
No, I think it weakens. The partnership.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you let any kind of emotion or personal feelings come into a central defensive partnership, then you're doomed, basically.
Have you ever...
There's got to be a little bit of disdain there. Yeah. Almost a little bit of hatred, I think, kind of helps in that area of the pitch.
Why?
Begrudging, kind of begrudging respect, those type of feelings best suit a central defensive partnership, I think, rather than a potential budding bromance that you were talking about.
It's interesting. Why is that the case? Is it because you're supposed to be the hard man at the back? Is that it? You're not supposed to show emotion?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a little bit of that. I think it's not a bad thing. No, but on a serious note, I think I was always fascinated with the Sheringham one when I first became aware of it. And you think, well, how does that work? I mean, if you don't have it can't help. I'll say that it can't kind of help the partnership on the pitch, no matter where it is, whether it's central midfield, fullback, wingers, or whatever side of the pitch it is, even at centre half. I know we're kind of joking about it a little bit, but it can't make it easier. I'll say that. It must make it more difficult. You know what I mean? If there is not a healthy respect, you'll have a healthy respect from a sporting point of view, but on a personal level, if there's issues there, you know what I mean, you don't quite hit it off. Can't help, I don't think. I think certainly the best partnerships kind of, bloom and are at their very best if, there's a bit of common ground there than between people in any area of the pitch, to be honest with you. I think it brings out the best in those kind of partnerships. Beardsley, Lineker? Little
Partnership or bromance?
A bit of a bromance. Yeah, he loved each other. Everybody loved Beardsley though at the time, wasn't it? Peter Beardsley.
People wanted to play with him, not just because he was great, but because he was a good man.
Yeah, I think so. That little perception as well. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose that's what you try and do as a manager in dressing room. Try and build partnerships, and build that camaraderie thing. It's not a big thing. It's not a new thing, is it? The whole dressing room, but those little individual partnerships. And I was lucky at centre half. Played with some great people alongside me. But I always felt, I don't remember playing. Probably wouldn't admit to it here, would I? Playing alongside anybody that I thought, this fella drives me up. You know what I mean? Drives me up the wall. I can't bear them. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm lucky. Yeah, because I wouldn't. I honestly say I don't think I would have enjoyed the experience as much. I think that makes, when you have your small little spikes of success wherever it is during the course of your career, I think when you can share it with the dressing room and your kind of peers and people alongside you, if that's a central defensive partner in my book. Yeah, I think it makes it a little bit more special as opposed to whatever, good game. Yeah.
So tell me, Kenny Cunningham, Matthew Upson, bromance or partnership?
No, I got on well with Matt. Still keep in contact. I got on well with Matt. Yeah.
Bromance.
Bromance is too much of a stretch. Okay. I'm not buying into the bromance, but I take your point where you are. So no, we got on well. We got on well together. Matt was kind of a bright, good thinker of the game, very smart, as well as being a very good player, good understanding of the game. So we actually kind of complemented each other reasonably well in that respect. And the Irish thing as well, I had some really good partners in playing for it. I was lucky there.
I'm going to ask Gary Breen and Kenny Cunningham, bromance or partnership?
Not going to let it go, are you? You're not going to let it go.
That's the last one. I only had two in my head.
No, both. I'd have to say both. I was lucky. Yeah, Breen would have played a lot of games with. I'd say more playing styles. For me, be more kind of playing styles, kind of suited. Played a few games with Richard. And Richard was young coming in. Richard was great to play alongside as well. So, yeah, no, I was lucky in that respect. But I must admit, given that people say some players I played were very. This is a job. Go in, earn my wage. Boom, go home, end of, that's it. Very kind of blinkered in their approach and not overly emotional in terms of the job itself. Maybe even the people as well. This is it. I'm in the game for 10, 15 years if I'm lucky. Get as much as you can out of it, which is right. We're all the same. But, I think it's all about the people, isn't it? The dressing room, teammates, the kind of moments that you kind of share together, really. That's what kind of lasts over time. So I was lucky in that respect. Played with some good players, but also some great lads who actually enjoyed being around, enjoyed our company.
When you look at those experiences that you mentioned there, like those positive experiences, do you draw on that when you're analysing modern day centre backs, or has the idea of that partnership, and I'm not going to use the other word again this morning, that idea of a partnership, has that changed a lot given the way the game has changed, that you're not really analysing it in the same way that it would have been analysed, say, when you were playing?
I'd be very surprised if that's changed. I mean, I haven't really been around the dressing room too much the last number of years, but I'd be very surprised if that's the change. If I was a coach and a manager in the dressing room, I think I'd still be preaching the same things that I experienced when I was in the dressing room. No matter where the partnership is on the pitch, but just kind of good communication and particularly that defensive unit. I was always a big fan of when I played. The defensive unit, particularly the back four, predominantly as it was then, but treating that unit in isolation, actually spending a bit of time together, even not so much teetotal obviously wouldn't have been a great night out with me, but I'm talking about maybe a video analysis room, that defensive unit going in together, sitting down, looking at footage and talking amongst ourselves, and I quite enjoyed that, being a kind of distinct little group within the main group. I felt those type of things really kind of pulled people together, like the defenders together. I quite enjoyed that, and I got a feeling, kind of defenders in particular, really bought into that. Maybe not so much the forwards might have been a little bit more different, but yeah, so that type of thing I really kind of bought into. I enjoyed that. I was always kind of aware of that coming out of the game, and maybe doing a bit of coaching. The kind of players reacted positively to that, particularly defenders, just kind of really kind of pulling people together.
Why do you think that is, that the defenders had more of an interest in that? Because it is curious. Like, I mean, it's just off the top of my head. I'm not sure if this is actually reflected in the numbers or not, but it does seem that even when it comes to like punditry, some of the better pundits that we see are defenders or midfielders. Like, I mean, the attackers, as you suggest, there maybe haven't always proved to have the same eye that a defender would have for the game. Is that the same thing, or is it?
It might be. It might be a little bit simplistic. I think you're right. I think you probably, the names that roll off the tongue are probably those type of players, like defensively kind of minded players. So what's going on in terms of the psychology there, the mindset, not too sure. People would say in terms of how players perceive the game, having a good eye for the game, generally speaking, maybe those players would be a little bit further down the pitch, like centre halves, kind of central midfield. Not quite sure. That might be a little bit derogatory towards maybe the more kind of forward thinking players. Yeah, it is an interesting point, all right, but yeah, but I think it's a good thing. Those little small partnerships are around the pitch are important. And I played a lot of my career at fullback. I wouldn't have played all my career as centre half. So for me, playing right back, that kind of player immediately in front of me, that right side of the midfield, I played with 10, 20 yards in front of me for most of the game, was absolutely huge. So good communication with him was important. So I always felt I worked in a small little unit down that side of the pitch with me right-sided midfield. So communication was important. Relationship was important with those type of people. So yeah, I think that's a normal thing. I don't think that's anything new on, is it? I think that's that's not even football. That's any kind of team sport, is it? I'm sure the lads, if I don't know, you'd have enough Gal lads here, and the hurling boys on rugby as well. In particular, like those key partnerships all over the pitch. Rugby's probably the most prevalent one at the moment, isn't it? In terms of the Six Nations, but those kind of relationships with people who really operate in those same kind of areas of the pitch, I think is absolutely huge. Probably rugby's probably the best example, isn't it? I'd imagine, in terms, I'm talking about the back four unit being together, being on the training pitch together, maybe doing drills together, or being in the video analysis room. With that, you could magnify that tenfold, I imagine, in terms of the line out in rugby, the tight group there. Scrum, that type of thing, combination play, the backs, all that type of thing. I think it's important, and I think players generally kind of quite buy into that.
Let's tell you what's coming up this morning, because we'll come back to that in just a moment. We've got David Meyler with us at 8:10 this morning. Loads to get into with him. The Champions League just around the corner. It is back on our screens tonight. The sports page is coming your way at 8:30. The sports news coming your way at 9:20. And then Emmet Brennan will be with us at 9:10 to talk about the potential of him being on the undercard of the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight later on in this year in April. Jamie Carr will be with us at 9:10 to talk about those endeavours that he's taking on this year. And then Tara Sullivan was reviewing the Super Bowl on last night's show. We'll be playing that to you at 9:30 this morning. We've got John getting in touch this morning asking, what did Eoin and Westmeath get up to for Valentine's? Basically, Kenny, I was told to get a room with Westmeath because they were so high in the power rankings. It's a lovely night, actually, myself and Westmeath, but no more details. Also, Neville and Carragher, Rio and Vidic on partnerships. Is his point. That's true. A lot of on-screen chemistry there between Neville and Carragher. Rio and Vidic, obviously, a good one. When you're looking at this current Manchester United partnership, I think it's on a lot of the back pages this morning, the idea of Harry Maguire potentially being under pressure with his captaincy. That's one element of this. Then there is the other element of this about Harry Maguire, the footballer, and his place in that starting team for Manchester United. Does that feed in at all to the conversation we just had about how he is connected with, say, Luke Shaw or with Raphael Varane, most importantly?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is important, particularly with somebody like Maguire. I like Maguire. I think he's got some fine qualities, but he's got his limitations and he has his frailties, and he'll always have them. He's not going to be able to do much about it because his frailties are in terms of his build, his athleticism, as something which he can't really conquer. So you're absolutely right. So when you compare him to, say, like Van Dijk, and you say to me, who's Van Dijk's ideal partnership, I could say, well, really, anybody. It doesn't really matter. Such are his qualities. He can really play alongside anybody. Van Dijk's maybe not dependent in any respect on the qualities of any one player playing alongside him. Where with Maguire it's different. That lack of kind of mobility, athleticism means that he's dependent to a certain extent on the qualities of the players around him. And you're right, Maguire plays left-sided centre-half, so he's looking at his right-sided centre-half predominantly and his left-back around him in terms of giving him a little bit of cover and giving him a dig-out. So when Varane first came into the team, I don't know if you remember back, first couple of games, remember there was a game away at Wolves, I actually thought the partnership worked quite well because Varane has that kind of quickness of foot, that bit of athleticism, kind of reads the game quite well. Maguire's obviously very dominant in the air, very good ball play, and actually reads the game very well. So their first couple of games together, I thought, although I wouldn't have been a huge Maguire fan, I like Maguire, but I always thought he might get found out because of for the reasons that I'm saying at the very highest level at Manchester United. But the first couple of games, I thought they complemented each other very well. But just feel as if you're always susceptible with those frailties that Maguire has, and we talk about you have to cover that player. Sometimes you just can't do it. If I'm Rafael Varane, I'm operating 15 yards to the right of Harry Maguire, one incisive pass on the inside of Harry Maguire, well timed running behind. I don't care how quick you are as a right sided centre half. Sometimes you're just never going to get back. You're going to get exposed. And unfortunately for Maguire, he's just made too many mistakes, and I actually think now, just confidence wise, it's really affecting him. He's actually losing a little bit of confidence and a bit of self-belief. And I think that's a big issue for him now. I don't think that's easy to conquer, particularly at a club like Manchester United, a kind of goldfish bowl. Every kind of pass you make, every tackle you miss is being kind of scrutinised, particularly Manchester United at the moment. I think he's in a tough spot, Maguire. And I think it's going to be difficult for him kind of medium to long term to kind of pull himself out of it. Because like I said, I'm sure he's a very good professional. He works hard at his game, and he is a talented player for the reasons that I said, the qualities that he has. But he can't do anything about that. You know, that kind of bit of stiffness which he has, that inability to kind of change direction quickly and, you know, explode, you know, over 10, 15 yards and match opposition forwards kind of pace, turn of speed. It's not going to change. So what do you do as a manager? You have to compensate. You have to compensate the whole team around them, as they're trying to do. Or maybe you cut your losses and say, look, show him the door, get as much money as you can, and go for that kind of prototype, that kind of Van Dijk, that kind of athletic, you know, who can defend in 1v1 situations, that like top class athlete that we're seeing now more of now in those kind of central defensive positions, particularly at the elite level.
I presume that compensation that you mentioned there isn't worth it for Manchester United, given they want to challenge for Premier League titles.
Yeah, well, that's the decision, and I think there was an argument. I think there's probably still an argument there that, well, it is worth compensating because of the qualities which you have. He's dominant in both boxes, and he has been in terms of anything through the air. He's a lovely footballer. So are you got to be the type of team? Are Manchester going to be the type of team who ask their centre halves to get on the ball and start them playing for in their own half of the pitch, you know, and be positive with their passing and break the lines with their passing, who centre half can actually travel into midfield in possession of the ball. Maguire can do all that. He's proved it. He's very talented in that respect, and I think generally speaking he is a quite good reader of the game. So they're the things you have to actually factor up. Are those qualities strong enough to make up for maybe the deficiencies in his game? I'm not too sure. You know, I wouldn't argue that one too strongly personally.
Does the captaincy added pressure?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it does add pressure to him. That's what I'm saying. He must be feeling it. I think it puts pressure on everybody, to be honest. It puts pressure on the manager. I think with your captain it's different. I think if he wasn't the captain, the decision's a little bit easier maybe to take him out and park him for maybe one or two games. But I think it has been the case. I think he has been taken on one or two of occasions. But it's a big decision, you know, taking your captain off the pitch, and even for the person themselves, it's your perception, how you're perceived then amongst the players. Yes, you're the captain, but actually you're not good enough to be on the pitch at times. Like that's not easy to deal with as well from Maguire's point of view. So yeah, I think he's in a very sticky position. The club's struggling at the moment anyway. There's a bit of turmoil around the place, and individually he's struggling as well. You know, I wouldn't put it past him. He looks a decent enough character, all right, maybe to turn things around. But a new manager going in there, and I think a new manager will go in the summer, if not before, and I don't think it'll be Ranić. I think that'll be one of his first big decisions in terms of assessing Maguire very quickly deciding is he the player that he wants to build his team around going forward.
They're playing Brighton at 8:15 tonight at Old Trafford, by the way, so it's a triple header of football between that and the 2 Champions League games tonight. One of the themes over the last 10 days or so of Manchester United has been going 1-0 up and then drawing 1-1. What are you putting this down to? Is that a mental thing? Is that a physical thing? Because it's been mentioned as kind of a little bit of both, really. Ralph Rangnick has mentioned that there's been kind of a confidence level. If you concede early in the second half, it affects the confidence of the players, is what he said. And then also he said that, to be honest, I don't know if we are fit enough to play that way in relation to pressing. So he's kind of questioning the mentality and the fitness here. So it could be both, I guess.
Yeah, I think the mentality thing comes into it when you're on that run of games where you get your head in front and you're constantly being pegged back. There is that constant kind of dread when you do go ahead, or if you do concede after that, or here we go again. But that's, to be honest with you, that's kind of a mindset a little bit more amongst the players. I think you got to be a little bit kind of stronger for. You have to be stronger than that. I don't think you can pass that one on to the manager. I think you have to take responsibility for that yourself, individually and collectively, the whole team. That's more of a kind of mental toughness there for me. You got to be stronger yourself. In terms of the press, it's always an interesting one. I think basically what the press comes down to is fitness levels, really. If that's what he's saying, I don't think we're quite capable of. Well, the press basically comes down to physically being able to do it, make those dynamic runs, 10, 15, 20 yard runs constantly, over a period of time, and also being set up to do it. Actually, the organisation being good and people having good pictures in terms of what they're being asked to do. Now that comes back to the manager. So I'm presuming that's been done. He has this kind of reputation of being very organised, detailed, and he's the one initially who pushed this kind of high press, and and he's led other younger managers have kind of learned from him, etc., etc. We've heard a little bit of that. So you presume the information's been passed to the players, but then you've got to ask, are the players actually physically, every player, and it's got to be every player on, as wherever you're pressing the pitch, everybody's got to be switched on, everybody's got to want to do it, and actually wanting to do it, generally speaking, comes down to if you're actually physically capable of doing it. When people say he doesn't want to press, for me, generally, if someone doesn't want to press, he's actually physically not capable of doing it. I don't know too many players who could physically go and do it, but decide, actually, I'm not going to do it. Physically, I'm more than capable of it, I'm just not going to do it. That doesn't happen. People don't press because physically their body's telling them, I don't really want to do this.
Right.
So that potentially is an issue as well when you look at one or two of the players. You could argue in terms of the relationship between the manager and the players, the respect level there. A club like United, it shouldn't happen, of course. You should die for the jersey, etc., and shouldn't come into who the manager is that particular time. But I think the reality is that I think it is a factor in terms of the perception amongst the players, the manager, how good he is he going to lead us to the promised land, etc., etc. And if there's a little bit of indecision there amongst the players looking over the manager thinking I don't really rate this fella too much, got to be honest with you, well, that's an issue as well. And I think maybe there's a little bit of that bubbling to the surface as well in the dressing room, and so that'll need to be resolved, and I think it will be, obviously, in the short term between now and the summer.
You are listening to Kenny Cunningham. He's with us here in studio on OTB AM, which is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Champions League is back tonight as well, Kenny. Paris Saint-Germain against Real Madrid.
Razors, I thought you were making it, having a dig there, Aaron. Just like you had a dig at me coffee from the bald barista.
I did not have it.
You made a point you kept a straight face when you mentioned that earlier. I didn't realise it myself.
Oh, sorry, I get it now.
I was shopping at the.
I didn't even notice. Excellent coffee though, right?
Did notice the bald head.
Didn't notice.
Is a nice coffee, you're right.
Yeah. Out of 10?
I'd give that an 8. I'm not a connoisseur.
8.
Damien Duff might be a better man to ask about the old barista. I think he's on record as saying he could be a potential barista in the future.
Yeah. You haven't had the pleasure of having a Damien Duff coffee, have you?
I haven't. But I was impressed with this place. This place on South Great Georgia Street, as you know. You've been in there yourself. But I was impressed with. I asked the gentleman this morning. I said, "There's nice aroma in here, coming off your pastries. Do you mind me asking? Are they freshly prepared?" And he assured me that they had the dough delivered into the premises very early in the morning, stroke during the night, and so the actual breads and the pastries are cooked on the premises and displayed. And he said if they're not gone by 2-3 o'clock, he said they'll half price and they're out the door and none of them will be resold the following day, which is good to know. Which is good to know.
Good bakery.
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
People won't be able to see it on screen, but just to the left of Kenny Cunningham there is a white paper bag, which I assume came from said bakery.
Cinnamon swirl.
Give us a look.
That bag doesn't do it justice. I really needed a see-through bag to get. You even put a little serviette in there.
Yes.
Now look at that. That was a glint off. That's glistening, isn't it? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
Unfortunately, people can't get a sense of
Give us a taste test there.
Taste test. No, I'm not gonna. I know. I can see it. I'm enough of a connoisseur of cakes and pastries over the years.
So, so you came into the office around 7:10 this morning. You're going to be here till around.
Well, experience tells me not to be dependent on yourself or anybody else in this office for a fresh cup of coffee and a selection of pastries when I walk in the door. So obviously you got to take the bull by the horns to an extent.
Have a fresh cup of coffee. We don't have pastries all the time, but we will be open to any donations. So you're just going to not have that now between whenever you bought it. It'll be just sitting in the bag for 2 hours, like getting less and less warm. Yeah,
to be honest with you, generally, I wouldn't don't eat too much breakfast now. I'd take it or leave it, generally speaking, but it's all about once you get a whiff of that, you walk in somewhere, a coffee shop, it's tough, innit?
You've taken the pastry out of the bag. You've smelt it. You put it back in. Is this like some sort of self-torture or what's going on here?
It's a torture for you. The fancy of it. We'll split it after the show.
That's a deal. Thank you, Kenny. Do you know what? Actually, before we get to the Champions League, you mentioned Damien Duff there. Are you going to go watch Shell? I think you are going to go watch Shells this weekend, are you?
That's my intention. Yeah, that's my intention. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's great. I think there's a lot of great subplots around the league, to be honest with you. But I think Shells is a big story as well. I think Damien himself, the club, I'm really interested in watching the team play, how he sets up the team. Be a great game against Pats. New manager there as well, Tim Clancy. Good luck to him. Had a great season with Drogheda last year. Big chance for him. At St. Pat's, he's done a bit of business there. Lost some key players over the winter, which was a blow for them because I thought Pats were actually in a great position to challenge Rovers this year, just with one or two additions. And then they lost a few key players. Lee Desmond headed off to America. Robbie Benson went back up to Dundalk with the manager, of course. Matty Smith there as well. Would have been a blow. With a great season last year. Headed up to Derry, but he's done some business. Brought a few players in. Owen Doyle as well. You're probably aware of. He's come back from England. He's got a bag full of goals on over there. I actually read an article he wrote in the paper.
Dan did a good piece with him on Sunday.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Earlier than he might have expected, which I know there's like a business aspect to all of that.
Why wouldn't he? Getting served with pastries like this every morning.
It's a very good point. Like it may just be a kind of an outlier because, as I say, he does have the business at home, but that could be a semi-encouraging trend for the league if lads who have made, obviously they need to go make more money in England and they want to come home, aren't coming home in their late 30s, they're actually coming home in their early to mid 30s, and you're just getting a better quality player.
No, I think you're right, because it's tough to lose the young upcoming talent. It's always a blow when they go. We've lost a couple of them, obviously, over the Johnny Kenny from Sligo's gone to Celtic, kind of understandably so. Ross Tierney, another one from Bowes, headed over to Motherwell. So it's always tough, it's always disappointing to see the young talent go. It's understandable and kind of good luck to them, but you kind of want to hold on to them for as long as possible. But you're right, the cushion's the blow when you have players like Owen, probably in his prime, in 31 years of age, nowhere near being over the hill. There's other issues there to play, like you're saying, in terms he's got some business there as well. He's looking to kind of set up, and that's obviously a bit of a driver for him as well. Yeah, but great to see these players coming back into the league. And I just think that I'd like to think the perception of the league maybe has changed a little bit now. Players over in England looking back towards the league, where it used to be, I'm going to hang on here as long as I can. I might get a year back at 36, I'll get a year over there. Somebody will kind of give me a contract. But I think those top four or five teams now for a couple of years now, I just think there's been real quality within the squad. And I think it's like some of the limited success maybe say we're having in Europe. You know, European football, don't underestimate the attraction of that for our lads. Lads who go over to England will never experience European football. That's pretty much a given unless you're lucky enough to break through at the highest level. So an opportunity to come back and compete, whether it's Rovers, Derry, Dundalk, Pats, Bowes, as they have been these clubs competing in European football the past couple of years, That must be a big carrot for these players. And just the professional aspect, I think. A lot of young managers now coming, young coaches coming. I've mentioned a few of them already. Got some good ideas, very switched on, very bright. I think that's an attraction for players as well coming back. And just a general quality. And particularly that bracket, that top 4-5 clubs that we've got. We've got some real talent there. It's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be a great league this year and competitive. I know Rovers are there to be shot at. They're a very talented squad, very kind of well managed, very well run, well structured. The whole thing. That's the kind of template for everybody else. But the other clubs are making a run at, which is great to see. Stephen O'Donnell going back up to Dundalk. A little bit sad to a certain extent to see that, because they've done a great job at passing. They were really kind of looked as if they were in a position to challenge. So he's going to have to try and make an impact up at Dundalk. But Rory up in Derry's made some great signings, really astute signings up there. If he can get that going up there, then Derry's doesn't take much on, does it? To light the torch paper up there, get the fans out at the brandy well, and get travelling in large numbers and get that buzz going up there. If Rory can do that, I'm sure he will, then we're up and running. We've got a really great league to look forward to this year.
If I had to ask you for where you think this Shelbourne team and Damien Duff will finish up this year, like they're a giant, not a sleeping giant, so are they going to stay up in the top tier and make a push maybe to some of the upper reaches of the league over the next little while?
Yeah, if I was Damien, I wouldn't be setting too many targets. I was never a big fan person myself. I was in over the years, being in the dressing room or the training ground, and managers put, well, this is our target for the next 6 games, 10 to 12 points. This is putting all the games up, and this never really bought into it, mate, to be honest with you. I thought, what are we doing here, to be honest with you? What happens after those 6 games if we've got 6-7 points? Do you change the parameters then after that? Well, let's bin that, forget about that, what we were talking about, let's go again, let's set some new targets, so I was never really one for that. So I think you'd probably better advise Damien not to set too many targets and just look game to game, really. But I think they'll be, what you do know under Damien, they'll be well set up, organised, kind of well motivated. Joe O'Brien there as well, looks like a good partnership they've got there. Just a bit of buzz and excitement around the club. The most difficult thing I find now is getting the actual information in terms of players in and outs in the League of Ireland. So used to, in terms of the Premiership, and
everything is there. Yeah,
you tip, and I wouldn't be the greatest anyway, but I can usually find my way of players. But League of Ireland was only a friend of mine last week, Kevin Brannigan, going to give him a mention on air. Direct me to a lad who has some kind of a site podcast thing, and he actually listed all of the ins and outs, which is a good thing to have, because so many players moving around between clubs and leaving the country, and players coming in from all sorts. So that was good. So it was good to get a bit of a grip on that. So yeah, I'm looking forward. I've got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll probably look forward to this start of the League of Ireland season, to be honest. I'm more excited about this than I was at the start of the Premiership season back in August. I've got to be honest with you, for the reasons that I'm saying. And that Dublin thing, another North Dublin club in the mix, own.
That's what you want.
Yeah, on the banks of the Tolka. So that's a great story. I think it's great. That's great for the league as well. So I can't wait. Can't wait, to be honest with you. So yeah, Friday night, hopefully I'll be there.
Brilliant. Great to that level of excitement is infectious, Kenny, I'm not going to lie. So we'll be doing a bit more before Friday night, before the league kicks off. Speaking of things that are kicking off, it is Champions League tonight. We'll get to that in just a moment. You know what, we'll take a quick break in just a sec, and we'll have David Meyler with us as well in a few minutes.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
You're on fire today. I need to speak to someone in Egypt. Joe is not happy.
I went to see Simply Red in the 3 Arena, and just to be involved in a crowd was just it's a secret hidden.
Well, hang on, sorry, there's a tangent we're going to have to take here. So Simply Red, right? Okay, what's your favourite Simply Red song then, Liam?
If you don't know me by now.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
FBB Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance plc.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
8:05, you're welcome back to OTB AM. It's brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Champions League returns tonight. Paris Saint-Germain at home to Real Madrid at 8 o'clock, and then Sporting Lisbon at home to Manchester City. The other fixtures this week: RB Salzburg are at home to Bayern Munich tomorrow night, and Inter Milan at home to Liverpool also tomorrow night. And then you've got the likes of Manchester United and Chelsea in action next week. So 4 games to look forward to this week. No away goals, Kenny. So these legs, I guess, slightly more important than they usually are. I don't know. This kind of it dampens the expectation a little bit, doesn't it? Away goals are great.
I must admit, I think it's an argument both sides, but I wouldn't have. I would have left it as it is. I've got to be honest with you, because I just think that adds another element to the excitement level potentially on that kind of. I think when that second leg kind of comes around and you get into the meat of the game, you know, get into that second half, second leg, you know what I mean, and that you're one eye on that all important away goal and the effect it can kind of have on the game. It gets into the kind of mentality of the players as well. Does it affect tactically in terms of managers, how they're setting up and all those type of things? So for me, it was always interesting. I was always fascinated with it. It just gave the whole thing a new dimension. I know people would argue, it encourages people not to come out and play. Does it encourage people? All these type of arguments you could argue around the houses, I suppose. But yeah, I must admit, when it was taken out, my initial reaction was, we're just maybe just sanitising things a little bit too much. Maybe like I just thought it was distinctive. Yeah, in terms of the away goals, it was like. And I suppose you could argue this is ridiculous. It really, when you think about it, kind of logically, if you bring the whole, logic manual down, on top of it, maybe so. Yeah, but I quite enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I thought it was a nice little ingredient.
It was different for sure. Yeah. We've got David Meyler with us. David, how are you getting on?
Good morning, lads.
Good to have you back in the show. Does this change the dynamic then? Tonight, tomorrow night, these first legs that we may see these away teams going for it just that little bit more?
No, definitely. I agree with Kenny. I think, the away goal brought some magic. I believe, though, the biggest problem for me with it was when it went into extra time, if a team then scored, they hadn't changed that. But it does lose that little bit of spark. Like, if you're away first, you kind of look to, be solid, not concede, and then at home you look to push on. It used to be always that big team's kind of home advantage in the first leg was huge. But certainly you expect probably teams to be a bit more open and play a bit more football.
I was going to say out there, me and David probably wouldn't be. All right, David, how's it going?
You all right, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm twisted up here with me headphones. Sorry, I didn't acknowledge you when you first came on. I didn't. I suppose me and David. I was going to say, just to talk us both down, Dave. We can't lean on too much personal experience here, me and Dave, when it comes to like Champions League football, home and away, and the away goal drill. I might be wrong, David, unless I'm misrepresenting you here in terms of your career. You didn't nick one of those Champions League places with Hull, did you? When you were on fire there, were you?
We got Europa League when we lost the FA Cup final against Arsenal.
Well, I can trump that Anglo-Italian when I was at Millwall in my early days. The Anglo-Italian competition, which has long been forgotten, way before your time, David. I experienced a little bit of a European competition. It didn't last too long, to be honest with you. The competition was kind of sky-bosh because there was murders going on. There was players fighting up the tunnels and there was all sorts going on. Like, it's probably the wrong time for the competition to emerge. But yeah, that was my only sampler.
What was that competition called? Sorry, David.
Anglo-Italian.
Oh, that was the literal name of it.
Yeah.
Go for it, David.
No, do you know what, Kenny? We who do we play? FC Loughran from Belgium.
Yeah.
And we drew away in the first game, and we came back obviously to Hull and played them. and we drew. It was 1-1 at home, and we got knocked out in away goals. We missed a couple of great chances at the end.
So too conservative when you went out. Too conservative.
Well,
you were meant to be an attacking midfield player. You were meant to be the one nicking the away goals here. What was going on?
Do you know what? There was none of that. No. We were all fresh out of water. We had a couple of Spurs boys who played Champions League, but the rest of us hadn't experienced, the lights of European football. So we were a bit nervous.
Does it feel different when you're out there, David? Does it feel like, right, this is a bit bigger?
Yeah, it does. No, definitely, because obviously at the same time when we were playing away, we were like, if we can, nick a goal, obviously it's massive being an away goal. We knew that, but we were solid. Obviously, if we'd managed to get through the tie, we got into the group stage, which would have been enormous for the club and us as players at the time. We probably didn't perform particularly well in the first half. Got going in the second half, created a couple of half chances, and then Robbie Brady had a great chance. Obviously you draw there away, and then you come back and you're thinking we need to win the game and we have to try not to concede. And obviously with them scoring, we threw the kitchen sink at it in the last 15-20 minutes. We just couldn't get the ball over the line, and then we got knocked out, through away goals, which was obviously heartbreaking. So have that experience of playing in the Europa League group stage would have been incredible, but it wasn't to be, lads.
I can't believe you shoved Robbie Brady under the bus there, to be honest with you. He had a sitter that he missed in the away leg, cost us the whole tie.
Do you know what, Kenny? You know what it's like. I'll go one more. Tom Huddleston missed 2 great chances in the home leg. Albeit one was cleared off the line, but someone with his ability, he's striking the ball, you'd expect him to score. But
he's done it again. You thought he was going to give him a dig out. He's pushed him back under the bus. He's pulled him out from under the bus, and then he's thrown it back under again.
Hey,
unbelievable.
You know what it's like in this media world. You have to be honest. You can't beat around the bush and protect people.
Oh dear, it's harsh.
It's a decent Hull team. Just looking at it here, was it, Harry Maguire was there as well, obviously. So I have it.
Are we going down that road now? Are we going to move on to United and go down the Harry road?
Let's stick on the Hull.
Sorry, this is Hull version of Harry
superstar. You're right. A lot of superstar, a lot of big egos in that dressing room. When David was there, you're absolutely right.
Do you know what?
Present company included or excluded. I don't know whether you'd exclude the company or include it. High wages. You definitely include David in that. Definitely include him in that. Absolutely.
But going back to that time, though, obviously we'd Andy Robertson, Harry Maguire, whatever. Yeah. They were young lads. Harry didn't speak much. Robbo certainly didn't speak for the opening 4 months. And kind of the bubbly character you see now at Liverpool. He was he came out of his shell after about 5 months. But they didn't speak a lot in the early days. There was no egos in that change room. We were just a great bunch of lads. We were very fortunate. I know, Kenny, you'll see the same throughout your career. You kind of are in a changing room, and I still speak to the majority of lads today, and they all miss that change room because we ironed out a lot of problems ourselves. There was never really, it was only when it became a serious incident or serious matter that the manager got involved. But, we policed our own change room, and I'm very fortunate with that change room around the 14, 15, 16 seasons with great lads who, knew what was right, and we punished lads who stepped out of order if they were late, if they weren't pulling up in training, weren't pulling themselves up in games. We did it all ourselves.
What about players who spend too much time on their video games rather than being on the training pitch working on their game? Without players, did they get pulled up? Those players are.
No, Kenny, I never.
Their back cave wouldn't come out. Their back cave.
I never missed training for video games. I only ever played in my downtime.
Are you good at Pac-Man? Are you good at Pac-Man, David? I mean, I know these modern games, obviously you're up there, you're kind of second in the world or wherever you are, but the old school games, it's hard, Pac-Man and Space Invaders. How are you on the Space Invaders? That's what I'm more interested in.
Well, technology has advanced since the early 90s, Kenny. I do like Pac-Man. Haven't played much of Space Invaders. But at the same time, yourself, the culture when you first grew up, a lot of lads were out drinking, gambling, all that. A lot of our lads played video games and kept us away from that side of it. So
had a drink, had a drink while you're playing video games, and had a bet on the video game who was going to win. Just because you went in the bookies, David. Just because you went in the bookies. David, do you mind me asking you? Sorry, Eoin.
No, go for it.
It's interesting there. We were talking about Harry Maguire actually at the start of the show. I don't know if you were listening. You probably weren't. Probably had no interest in listening to the show before you came on. But What do you think his position there at the moment? We're just talking about him. I think he's a bit of a sticky wicket there, to be honest with you. You'll know his qualities better than me in terms of, we're speaking about how dominant he is in terms of the air. Lovely footballer, reads the game well. But just where he's compromised a little bit, David, in terms of his athleticism, his kind of mobility, that kind of speed which he has, which has been getting more exposed, I suppose, over the last year. And he seems to be suffering a little bit in terms of confidence. I look at him at the moment, I think new manager coming in, it might be the case where he might actually get shown the door. That might seem a little bit harsh, but in terms of kind of rejuvenating the squad, particularly a club like Manchester United, you look at the type of centre halves which you need, the modern day centre half in terms of, you know what I'm talking about, that athlete, quick over the ground, good in 1v1 situations, that real kind of athleticism about them. Maguire's he's not in that mould, is he? He's kind of a little bit of a throwback. How do you see him in terms of his Manchester United career? Do you think he'll be there in the medium to long term? How do you see it?
Well, to start, I was reading an article that Ragnick did. It must have been an interview or whatever, and he said he's not going to, obviously strip him the captaincy. I think United have invested a lot of money in him. I obviously think he's well liked within the club. With the higher ups, obviously, the previous managers, going back to Solskjaer, I think they all think an awful lot of him. Look, if you look at Harry throughout his career, he's never been blessed with pace. I'm not saying he's slow, but he's never been blessed with that, electric pace that could get him out of danger. You look at someone like Van Dijk, he never gets done with pace.
Yeah.
Think with Harry, look, Kenny, you played there. I think Harry, he does have a good reading of the game, but at the moment, I don't know what it is with him.
Confidence,
seems to be,
David, maybe.
Yeah, confidence is certainly a big one. You even look at his, I've been thinking long and hard about this. If you look at his performance throughout the Euros, certainly the partnerships that he had, I know England played the back three at times, which would suit him massively. But definitely, he is all over the place. There's no two ways about it. He's taking far too many touches on the ball. His positioning is poor. He's getting caught out. It's a lot of basic stuff, Kenny, that he's doing wrong, and that must come down to confidence. Obviously, with United going through the tough time, they're going through. Certainly, they've got a lot of big characters there. He's meant to be the captain. He's meant to lead. I know a lot of people are quick to point out maybe Bruno or Cristiano would be better suited. But then I kind of look at, example I would look at would be, say, Liverpool, with the type of character like Henderson is, that he's not a superstar, but yet he's able to lead them and he's able to be the captain of them, and they all look to him for that kind of inspiration if you look at, at their game. So I don't see why Harry can't be captain of that team. But certainly at the moment, he needs to go back to the drawing board and kind of sit down. He's taken far too many touches on the ball. He doesn't move it quick enough. All those kind of stuff. And kind of, we have that old saying in football, go back to the basics, where United need to start keeping clean sheets. Like, you look at the last few games they played where they go ahead at half time and then they end up conceding and they can't kick on. Like, they have to, we're all in favour this day and age of, this open modern football where you play out from the back. It's kind of the Pep Guardiola model that's come in over the last 5-6 years, that there's nothing wrong with being solid and giving up possession and, getting into it, your 2 banks of 4, with your 10 dropping back in, probably to make it a 5 in midfield, where you actually say to a team, try and break us down and we'll catch you on the counter-attack. United play this kind of open, expansive stuff, which just doesn't suit them. Ragnick's come in, he's trying to do this high pressure. We've seen with the Burnley games, a prime example. First half, they're moving the ball quickly, they're creating chances, they're going after teams, but they just leave themselves so exposed, so open. And at the moment, with confidence levels, they just can't see a game through for 90 minutes.
Yeah, so this is the thing, David. So you're right in terms of that kind of high press Ranić, but that'd be similar for a lot of managers now in the modern game, isn't it? In terms of that high press, get the whole team up the pitch, get your 2 central defenders up to the halfway line. But of course, you'll know what you're saying there is when you get the whole team into the opposition half and you go high pressing and you commit, to a large extent, you're going to detach your fullbacks from your centre halves. You're going to have to send your fullbacks a little bit higher up the pitch if you're going to really commit to that kind of full press. So that kind of isolates your 2 centre halves, doesn't it, with a lot of space in behind, even with the kind of sweeper keeper with a high starting position. So this is it. This is the problem there is here with Maguire, isn't it, in terms of that lack of mobility. Managers will look at him and think, have I got confidence in me left-sided centre half to defend his area of the pitch when we're high pressing and teams are going to drop that ball in behind or down the sides of our defenders. Has he got that speed of foot and that kind of athleticism to go and defend his area of the pitch? I'm not too sure he does. So let me ask you this. You're the new Manchester United manager. You're rolling there in the summer. Do you keep Maguire and you build your team around him going forward, or do you cut your losses and get him out the door and go and reinvest?
I would keep with them. I would stick with them. I definitely think he's enough. Okay, he's had a tough season so far this year. I think he's got enough credit in the bank with United, and certainly what he's done in the past, that he can come through it and play. I think Rafa Varane is an ideal partner for him, certainly with his pace and his experience. Like as you said there, it might be something that they need to alter. I know we talked about these, attacking fullbacks. Certainly with, you'd have Luke Shaw or Telles playing on his side. Can you find a way that if we're attacking on the right side, that the left full doesn't push on too far, whatever, that you can give that added bit of cover to him? But it's also, look, when you step into that, you have to obviously look at your strengths and weaknesses, and that is a massive weakness for United. When they push up, if the line is going over, the back four line is going over the halfway line, do you then drop that line 5 yards? Yes, you then create that disconnect between the midfield and the front three, that the gaps in between for the 10 is probably the opposition 10 would be a lot bigger. But at the same time, then you're keeping the play in front of you. As you well know, if the ball is in front of you, you're doing your job. It's when you're running back towards your own goal is the problem, and that's where United are struggling. So it could be like a little altercation of certainly the back four's line. Could we not go as high? Seen that even as myself as a Liverpool fan, you look at Liverpool playing Burnley the other day, the amount of times Burnley are getting in because of Liverpool's high line. Now on another day, Burnley will punish Liverpool and they'll score 3 or 4 goals. At the same time, Alisson makes some saves, and I know De Gea has had an incredible year. But can you alter that?
Yeah, that's the risk and reward in the modern game, isn't it? That's what managers have to kind of.
But do you not feel, Kenny, though, there is this perception now that teams have to play a particular way? Like everybody's kind of gone after. Like Jurgen is a master at it. Jurgen's a master at it. What he did with Dortmund, what he's done at Liverpool over time, that he's been able to get Liverpool's front three to press the midfield. Like they're all workhorses. Certainly with Man City, you've seen that with Pep, with Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and now with Manchester City, that they play this possession dominant football. But once they turn over possession, they have this thing, that 4, 5, 6 seconds, they have to get the ball back. I think they're shaping the Premier League in terms of then everybody else. I'm going to say, when I say everybody else, I mean the kind of top 6 sides who are pushing for top 4, trying to compete with those 2 teams, that they're kind of following in that. You look at United, obviously appointing Rangnick, who they say is the master of this, and he was the one who's educated so many different managers, and Tuchel and those who've learned from him. But I don't think United have the personnel for it. I don't think those players have been shaped that way. You look back really deep and hard against Sir Alex's teams, United weren't as much as a dominant team. They were exceptional on the counter-attack. Certainly in the 08-09, where you've Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, in terms of the speed they broke at and the players, that suits United more, and they're the personnel they have. I don't think United are cut out to, dominate a team as much as, say, Manchester City.
Yeah, I don't think Manchester United are cut out to defend, full stop. I take the points on what you're saying there, Dave, but just the basic fundamentals in terms of defending. We're talking about Maguire, the kind of protection that he's getting, and you immediately look to his, we spoke about it already, on his right side of centre half and his left back over that side of the pitch, in terms of kind of giving him a dig out. But what we haven't spoke about in terms of what's happening in front of him, that kind of defensive shield in front of him, Dave, that kind of central midfield position, which you know very well, and I know very well from being a centre half, and I was a centre half who couldn't run either, probably even slower than Harry Maguire. So I was very dependent on getting that kind of support around me. So what was very important to me was that I knew that space 10-15 yards in front of me, to a large extent, I didn't have to worry about, because I'd have 2 central midfielders who'd stay in contact with me, who'd kind of shield any balls into the centre forwards' feet, block off passes, and if a pass did get around the corner, they'd immediately recover, and they'd be getting in contact with the centre forward. That was huge, David, for me, because then I knew I could really concentrate in terms of what was going on in behind, balls in behind. I could adjust my starting position. I could take a couple of steps backwards and give myself an even bigger starting position on the centre forward if a ball was played in behind, because I knew that space in front of me was secure because of the positional sense and the defensive qualities of the 2 central midfielders. Now, if we start talking about the defensive qualities of the Manchester United central midfield, I can't even start the conversation, to be honest with you, because there isn't one player there in that Manchester United squad I can hang my hat on as a central midfielder and say I trust him.
Right.
He can defend. He understands the art to defend in that central midfield area, and I can trust him. Not Fred, not McTominay, and I like McTominay. He's got some good qualities, but for me, he's an attacking midfield player. All his qualities are when he's ahead of the ball and heading towards the opposition goal. Matic's legs have gone. I don't know where the answer is. I mean, so it's a combination of things. I think you're absolutely right in terms of the qualities of those Manchester United players in all areas of the pitch, centre half, centre midfield. The balance seems to be totally wrong at the moment, and the individual qualities of players, particularly that central midfield area, Dave. I mean, you must have seen it now. It seems like we've been talking about it for like
all of last
6
window.
years.
Yeah.
I'd say we've been talking about it. I literally can't. We probably have to go back to, you're talking about Tevez there, David, and Ronaldo. I'd probably have to go back. I'm talking Nicky Butt. I'm talking here. I'm thinking Roy in that central area of the pitch. Phil Neville, to be fair to him, when he went in. These players who understand the role, what was required of them, showed a bit of defensive discipline. You're talking about Liverpool and the qualities they have, but Liverpool and central midfield have players who know how to defend. Fabinho. Now, Fabinho's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he's smart. And he understands the position. He knows where to position himself. Henderson's a beast in and out of possession. You don't carry Henderson when you haven't got the ball. He rats around the place. He makes tackles. He tracks runners. They can play that high intensity game. Just Manchester United at the moment don't have those qualities in central midfield. So we're talking about kind of Harry Maguire. It's interesting because David's played with him. But you play central midfield, David. I mean, you've got to have at least one player in that central area of the pitch where you know where your commit players high up the pitch. You look over your shoulder. As a centre half, I'm looking at centre midfield. Well, thank God he's there. I can trust him. He'll sniff out danger. He'll make interceptions. He'll hold people up. He'll make good decisions. You know, he'll give us that real defensive access. Who's that player in the Manchester United squad at the moment, David? Who gives you that?
None of them. That's you've hit the nail on the head there, Kenny. There's none of them. Obviously, I'm a big fan of McTominay, but I don't think he understands his defensive roles. I agree with you. He's probably better as kind of an 8 that gets up and down, kind of pick up those positions every now and then. But he's better coming onto the game and coming onto the ball. We've seen that in prime example of performance where he's gotten goals. Fred is a luxury 6. He doesn't do the nitty gritty stuff. The stuff you're talking about where you're screening, the attacker, you're blocking those passing lanes, you're stopping balls getting in, so you might get a touch on them, you're causing, upset the opposition's build up. Matic, he's really disappointed me. Huge fan of Matic all the way through, at Chelsea. I thought it was going to be an exceptional signing for United, but I agree with you, his legs are gone, he's not as mobile anymore. It's one of those, that 6th player is crucial, and I don't think people realise that, it's only come to the forefront with United now, but all the best centre halves, if you look at them, they always spoke for 90 minutes to the 6. And I remember my time playing as a 6, whether it be, with Sunderland, Hull, whatever, with Ireland, always had the centre half barking at you, and you're thinking will you ever leave me alone? But they're putting you in a position that protects them. And it actually helps you because you're getting organised and you're screening passing lanes. You know where the opposition player is. You're picking up their 10. You're picking up the 9 if he drops in. But it makes their job easier, and you add that bit of protection. But it also helps you. I can imagine, Kenny, you were barking orders the whole way throughout your career because you're stopping that supply line of the ball getting through. And United don't have that. They don't have that player who can sit in there. There's probably a case as well where we spoke about Harry's confidence. That he's probably not barking orders at Fred McTominay, or if he is, they might not be listening to him. You have to call a spade a spade. They might not respect that. They're probably looking, I need to concentrate on my own performance or whatever. It's been a huge problem going all the way back where we spoke about Pogba. Could Pogba play in the 6? But we again highlight his defensive qualities. He doesn't do enough work out of possession. The biggest thing, if United are serious about remounting the challenge for the title or pushing, getting up to Liverpool and Manchester City's level, they're probably going to have to go and spend whatever it's going to be, 125 million on probably debt.
David, who would he be? Your Manchester United manager again. Who's your first sign in that position, that number 6 that we're talking about, those qualities? Who's out there? Who would you go and grab?
I think you have to go after Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice is the one. I think, obviously his level performances. Obviously Declan now he's also kind of doing a bit too, I'm not going to say a bit too much, but he's doing a bit of everything. We've seen there in the FA Cup, getting forward, getting goals. He's trying to add that to his game, which nothing wrong with a 6, chipping in with a few goals here and there, depending on opposition. But definitely think he has. You got to remember, Declan Rice played as a centre half for a large period of his underage career, so I think he understands that position. And now he's stepped into the fold of as a 6. And if you see it as in his performances of his early days at West Ham, he was very defensive minded. You could see he was a centre half, kind of filling in as a 6. And I think over the last probably 2 years, he's really kicked on, and he understands the role. But he understands the role of both, and I think he would be. Look, I think he's the ideal signing for United to kind of slot in there. Then that allows like Bruno to kick on more and do even more in that creative aspect. There's also right. Kenny. There's also that one is from my understanding of the position, when you play with the 1, say 1-6, or you play with 2 6s. The 1-6, when he's on his own, he looks to shield the entire back 4, right? So he's trying to obviously control the 2 centre halves. He's going to slot into wide areas. Your full backs go forward. He can tuck in and cover that position. Right? When you have 2, you kind of divide the pitch in half. That the left side of the 6 will cover the left hand side. Now, that can be a very dangerous game to play if players don't understand the situations. I've had it in my own time where I've been slotted in with a new midfield partner, and you're kind of crossing lines. The distances between you are too big. Then at times you're on top of one another, and the space is out wide. Maybe United need to go and sign that 6 who plays as an out and right 6, who just controls the entire backline. His job is not to get forward. It's just to stay there, win the ball, and give it to, arguably, inverted commas, the better players who will go and create some magic, who will go and create chances.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it, if they were to sign Declan Rice and he plays as the 6, and then you put Pogba and say Bruno in front of him, and you say, look, like Declan's obviously a confident young boy. He'd probably go, do you know what? I'll do this, and then I'll give the ball to you, and you go and create the magic. You go create goals, score goals, whatever you want to do. But I know my role, and I ain't moving from here. And then you almost form that little triangle between the 2 centre halves and the 6, that the 6 then can cover into wide areas when the full backs get forward. Like Kenny, I've spoken to you several times over the years about, if you look at when Henderson plays.
You haven't spoken to me the last couple of years. You haven't picked up the phone to see how I was. I know that. Not even a little bloody text, WhatsApp message. How's things with you? Oh, good. Family well. But if you look, absolutely if nothing. No, I'm giving it all that, like me mate. Yeah, we've spoken a lot over the years. Yes.
But here, let me finish, right? But if you look at, I go back to Liverpool, so I watch an awful lot of Liverpool.
Have you not got a signal on that back cave of yours? Have you not got a signal on your phone?
No, I don't.
You can't make outgoing calls around now. Right, go on.
Phone gets turned off.
Keep going. Keep going.
But if you look at Liverpool, right, and I agree with you, Fabinho is an ideal 6. He's 6. He's one of the best in the world at it. He doesn't have a lot of pace, but he reads the game better than a lot of people do. But if you look at, right, Henderson is the one that plays on the right, the 3, and he covers for Trent Alexander-Arnold an awful lot, and he allows him to get forward. Why? Because he understands his role, but he also understands the attacking threat that Trent brings with his assists, his goals, and whatever. And Jurgen has found the balance. And if you look at it, that's why a lot of people say when Henderson doesn't play, you notice there's a massive unbalance in their side. And that's a huge part. And at the moment, United, it's almost as if they're 11 individual players trying to worry about their own jobs, but they're not kind of contributing to the team together. Like Man City are exceptional at doing it. When somebody loses possession, they all get together. They all close up. They shorten up the pitch and they win the ball back high up in good areas. Whereas United, there was a prime example. I can't remember what game it was. Owen, you might remember, there was that one where they had 3 or 4 players pressing individually and they just got picked up. I think it was the Liverpool one where they got clean 5-0. But they were pressing individually. Now, Kenny, you and I both know that if you press on your own, you're just going to get popped off. At this level, the players are too good. You have to be organised, you have to be structured. There has to be a trigger. That usually comes from the 9. He's the one who starts the press. But he looks back to say, right, I'm going. This is stuff you've worked on in training, that, there are triggers, right? Whether it be we're going to leave the ball go to the left side of centre half, the 9 is going to shape his run, to arc him wide, and then the entire team shoves him into that corner. And obviously they look to win possession. That's a massive thing United don't have either. They're kind of pressing in 1s and 2s.
Can I just ask here before we kind of wrap up this section of the conversation? I know you've already touched on it, David, but just how that differs to the best teams in Europe at the moment in terms of how they utilise their midfield and their relationship with the centre back. Because yes, it does feel that, say, Manchester City have had 2 advanced 8s and a number 6, but it does feel as if their 8s give it more of a dig out than, say, Pogba or Bruno would in your sort of next season idea there, David? And especially with Liverpool, like when you factor Jordan Henderson into proceedings beside Fabinho. So even if they do have that Declan Rice figure at number 6, do you still not need more from the likes of a Bruno and a Pogba in that midfield?
No, I think
No, 100%
it's not a silver
you
bullet.
do.
absolutely.
No, yeah, 100% you do. We in the day and age in this modern game, you can't afford to carry any player. You look at the work, Raheem Sterling does. You look at the work Salah does, Mane does. Even Chelsea, it's been well highlighted, obviously with Lukaku, that he's not putting in the work in. But all the best players, they put the graft in. They're all covering the distances, they're getting back into position. They're getting, they're making their team solid. And that's a huge thing at the moment United aren't doing. You can highlight, there's been a massive thing. Can Cristiano Ronaldo press? Of course he can press. But the idea is the structure has to be right behind the press. If Cristiano does press, you have your 8s and 10s that go with him. You've got your 7-11 and your wingers that are pushing up with them. But at the moment, United aren't doing that. They're a bit all over the place in terms of their pressing, and they're just getting picked off. And then, as what we touched on, then your defenders are being isolated, and at the moment, they're not dealing with situations. And that's a massive problem for them.
David, talking about recruitment, bad recruitment, Liverpool not really in that category whatsoever. I mean, if you look at the early signs of Luis Diaz, for example, it looks like he's going to be somebody who slots straight into this team. I assume you'd be quite confident of them progressing against a tricky Inter Milan set of ties?
Look, I'd be confident. Certainly, the good thing for Liverpool is the second leg is at Anfield, and we all know what Anfield's like on a European night. It's obviously going to be a tough game. Inter have obviously gone through massive change after winning, the league title. Obviously with Conte leaving. But certainly Liverpool they're in a good place. What I love to see is, obviously after the African Cup of Nations, you've Salah's on the phone the following morning and say, look, I'm fit and available for the next game. I'm flying straight back. I don't need rest. I want to get myself back in. Of course, he's got his own individual targets with the top goal scorer. He feels that Liverpool can win the Premier League. They can catch Manchester City. He feels that they can win the Champions League. Of course, then you look at Mane. Obviously, he has that a huge week scoring the winning penalty. But then he's back and he's starting at the weekend. That's kind of where Liverpool are. Where Liverpool are at. Everything is kind of going in the right direction. You've seen the signing of Luis Diaz. He's been very impressive. Obviously, Harvey Elliott coming back. I think it was the other day. It was the first time that Jurgen's had a full fit 11, a full fit squad to pick 11 from in a long time, which is only a massive plus, because the game's going to come thick and fast. Liverpool will want to continue this form of Champions League. They'll want to go and win it. Of course, the 9 points behind City with the game in hand. They'll want to win that. They play City, I think it's in April. So they're massive games, and obviously he needs a full fit squad that he can rotate. And Luis Diaz looks, the signs early on are that he'll fit straight in. He'll be like another Diogo Jota, that kind of player, which is obviously massive because Liverpool have never really had that backup for Mane and Salah. Now these two, like you look at Firmino, he's kind of in and out of the team when he was always a mainstay, but that's down to the form of Jota. So it's great to see that Liverpool do have these 5-6 options up in the front 3 places. Obviously competition is always healthy for a squad.
David, my last question. You spoke about Liverpool's front 3. Let me talk about Liverpool's midfield 3. I won't ask you who's your preferred 3. You've talked about the options they have now in up top in the central midfield, getting players back from injury, which augurs well for the second half of the season. But with these big crucial games come around, the Manchester City game in particular, looking as if it's going to be a must-win game. Who's your 3 in midfield in that kind of V-shaped? Fabinho, I'm guessing. At the pivot, as we spoke with Jordan Henderson, that right side at 8. I'm always interested in asking Liverpool supporters, who's your third midfielder? Who goes in? Who's your preference to go in alongside those two players who best complements them and best complements that kind of high press, high energy Liverpool style of play?
I'd probably go with Thiago, just for that extra bit of quality that he has over Henderson in terms of unlocking defences. His ability, with the 1-2s, that kind of like, that eye of a pass, he can see the pass, he can obviously pull off the pass. I think those 3 complement each other very well. I think that's Liverpool's best 3.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Thiago was the last person I picked, to be honest with you, in Liverpool's midfield, probably for the reasons that you've said. I take your point. I take your point in terms of the technical qualities. He's probably the most technical player in there. But for me, and it's interesting in terms of what we're talking about, United in terms of high press, energy levels, and kind of balancing the team. But for me, he actually unbalances Liverpool in that central midfield. His lack of speed, his lack of mobility, his lack of defensive astuteness, for me, is actually a small weakness in the Liverpool team. And I take your point, that's counteracted by the qualities which he has in possession. And that's the point, I suppose that's the interesting argument with Thiago. People will see it differently. David will look at those qualities and say, yeah, he gets into the team because of that. I look from the opposite point of view in terms of those defensive qualities which he hasn't got, and say that's why he doesn't get into my Liverpool team. But I think that's a really interesting one going forward for Liverpool.
Yeah.
In terms of like the personality of the team, that high intensity play, high energy play, which has got them this success for so long. David, do they kind of veer away from that? Those Harvey Elliott coming in, he's not in the same mould as him, isn't he, in terms of physical specimen, athlete, again, more of a technical player, more of a stylish central midfield player. Maybe Curtis Jones to a certain extent as well. But that would be interesting for me.
Just on Thiago, Kenny, like, do you agree with what Kenny is saying there, David, or is he right, but you would actually just take into account those weaknesses and still start him given his teammates?
No, I agree with I agree with Kenny. There's been several times when Thiago has played, he's gone to get the ball off the back four and he's tried to be a bit expansive, and he's ended up giving away the ball. He's given away a couple of needless free kicks on the edge of the box, the odd penalty here and there. I definitely think him as a 6 out and right, I wouldn't feel as confident as Fabinho or Henderson. That's why we would play more advanced. I get Kenny's point. He doesn't have that tactical awareness, but a lot of it does come down to your opposition. You look at Thiago, obviously he's had, a wonderful career with Barcelona. Obviously he's been a young pup playing on that side, but Bayern Munich certainly playing that 6. They dominated 99% of their games in terms of possession, so it was easy for him to play. Now, I know the Premier League's off different. Like, if we look at Liverpool going to Milan tomorrow and playing in that game, does Jurgen go with them? No, I wouldn't be surprised if Jurgen probably played, and I genuinely mean this, he probably played Fabinho, Henderson and Milner. Try to get 3 workhorses in there. Fabinho kind of sitting there like a dog owner holding the 2 dogs on a leash, like letting them go when here, there and everywhere, just to create that work ethic, that drive, that desire.
Defensive barrier, yeah. I know what you're saying, yeah.
It's a lot of it will come down as well to opposition and what, if you're playing home or away, how good, when it comes to Man City, what way will Jurgen go then? The front 3 kind of pick itself. It's a lot of it is that.
But there's good options there, David. I will say that he's got good options there now, Klopp, in terms of that central midfield and forward area. These players with different qualities. You know what I mean? We're talking, technical abilities, great athletes, and I think David's right. A lot of them, some of them might come down to in terms of quality of the opposition. What's their strength? He might actually think, I need that little bit more creative edge in central midfield against this. I'm a big fan of this Inter Milan team, particularly defensively. I think their back 3, if you can get Bastoni, De Vrij and Skriniar on the pitch, that's as good a defensive unit as you're going to get across Europe. So you might have a look at that and the bit of screen they have in front and think, I need that little bit more of a creative edge in that central area of the pitch, and that might get Thiago the nod for the game. It could come down to that.
And the thing is, as David pointed out there as well, the bill of health is looking good for Liverpool as well at a really important time of the season. Fighting on 2 fronts though. I don't think any Liverpool fan is giving up on the chase on Manchester City just yet either. David, great chat this morning. Thanks a million for hopping on the call.
Cheers, lads.
Don't be a stranger, David. You got me number.
Hey, Kenny,
you got me number. You lost it. You've lost it.
No, Kenny,
I'll get on to forward it on.
I was talking to Delaney the other day. He said you're ringing him all the time. You know what I mean?
John Delaney. Oh, we've got a scoop here, on. We've got a scoop.
No, Damien Delaney.
Oh, sorry.
He says Damien says you're always on to him, pestering him.
He's a good lad, He drops you an occasional text, Damien. How's it going?
You dropped him more than occasional text.
Nice lad, Damien. Nice lad. I like Damien.
Yeah. They're all good from Cork. David, great stuff. Cheers. Take care.
See you later. Bye.
Plenty of reaction to that chat there. Really good breakdown of the midfield and the defence of both Manchester United and Liverpool. In Bod We Trust 13 says no mention of the fact that De Gea simply doesn't play as a sweeper keeper and refuses to come off his line. Maybe definitely an element of that in the conversation here as well. Mark says doubt there will be a queue lining up to sign Maguire, so not easy to just get rid of him, which is definitely a fair point. They'll want to get a bit of return on their investment. Seamus says Declan Rice is too expensive, get Yuri Tielemans. the contract is running down. Stephen says the volume of bass Kenny made by banging the table earlier, we thought we hit a badger on the road. LOL. So did I, Stephen. I thought we hit a badger on the road here as well. But good to hit a bit of bass for us. There's a lot of different questions here, but one I wanted to just put to you from Dublin Souls. Does Kenny do Wordle? He let today's one slip out. It sounded very deliberate.
Sorry, what?
I think that's your answer. Have you heard of Wordle?
No.
So Wordle is a word game, which is a daily game where every day you get the opportunity to guess a new 5-letter word.
It has to be a word.
It has to be a word.
It's
yeah.
not a made up word.
No, it's always a real
Countdown,
word.
so like a bit of a countdown thing, jumbo letters.
So you have 6 attempts to get the word, and when you type in a word,
and I'm overcooking in my brains.
I saw I've gone. It will tell you whether or not the letter is correct, whether or not it's in the right place, or whether or not it's totally wrong. And then you got 6 attempts to get it. That's the succinct and very not at all clear.
Got to know your players. As you say in football, Owen, you got to know your players.
Yeah, I really do. The answer to your question, dear listener, is no. Kenny does not play Wordle, and he accidentally let this morning's one slip out. Let's have a look at the sports pages this morning. OTBSports.com. We might get a look at in a second. We can have a look at it right now. Minister gives Casement Park assurances despite Stadia funding cuts. Pat Nevin talking about the handling of the Kurt Zouma situation. They did the right thing for themselves, is what he says regards to West Ham United. Maggie Farrelly to make Allianz Football League history by refereeing a game this weekend. And James Lowe is back in training, which is good news for Leinster and of course good news for Ireland. And Camilla Vilieva cleared to compete at Winter Games, and that is one of the main stories on a lot of the UK back pages anyway. A mess in the making is the headline on the back of the Guardian. Valieva skates on for now, but why did it come to this? That's Sean Ingall's piece leading the way there. The day the Olympics died is how the Daily Telegraph frame it, a little bit more dramatic than the Guardian, to say the least. Fury as Valieva is cleared to compete after failed drugs test. We might do something a little bit more on that as the week progresses. The Irish Times leads with Owen Doyle's column this morning on the rugby at the weekend. Ireland contributed massively to the tournament's best match so far, and Jerry Thornley says Ireland display shows how far this team has travelled. At the back of the London Times is Fury at drug cheat reprieve. Russian skater 15 cleared to compete today. The back of the Irish Sun then is Rangxiety. Ralph says stars scared to commit to my pressing game, which is one way of putting it for sure. The back page of the Mirror is improve or else. Ranić admits skipper Maguire is out of form and claims he's struggling to adapt to a back four. The Irish Daily Star is keep calm and harry on. Maguire under pressure, but Ralph won't budge. Then a couple of other ones. Talking Heads is the headline on the back of the Irish Daily Mail. Faltering United players refer to psychologists. Every time Kenny Cunningham is in, Sasha Lenza, the Manchester United psychologist, gets brought up. It seems that they've been talking about working with this guy for a long time, but he is going to be working with him this week, according to those reports. Henry Shefflin, though, is the front of the Irish Examiner sports section. All the right moves. That's based on a Liam Sheedy column that says the evidence is suggesting that Henry has woken a sleeping giant. The Herald goes with Ranić as well. We have to raise level. United boss admits to fourth place in league is best they can hope for as bemoans second half collapses. And then finally it is the Irish Independent, and they go with the GAA, and they're going to stick with cashless turnstiles despite glitch. Only minuscule numbers impacted by technical error at hurling league games. Tyrone and Armagh to learn fate is Colin Keyes' story here, but we're hearing reports this morning that the bans have been upheld, and there's a photograph there of Lionel Messi preparing to face his old foes, which are of course Real Madrid. Right, it is 8:48. You're with us here on OTB AM, and I'm delighted to welcome Olympian Emmet Brennan to the show. Emmet, how are you getting on?
I'm good, yeah. I'm just training away, and as I said, I'm hoping on that Katie show. So I've started camp and I'm training as if I'm going to be on the show, although I haven't heard any word yet.
Brilliant. So for people who aren't fully aware of the story here, I'm sure everybody would have seen Emmet fight in Tokyo last summer, and then I guess the decision has essentially been made to go professional at this point, Emmet, and you're eyeing up your professional debut to be on the undercard of the Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano fight.
Yeah, like I'm 99% sure I'm going to go pro. I'm suited to professional boxing. Like, the Olympics was always the dream, but I was never suited to amateur boxing. It's a lot faster pace, whereas the professional game is a little bit slower, and it's suited more to my style. But like there'd be no better debut than the Katie Taylor show. And for me, like even looking from the outside, it just makes perfect sense. There's going to be a huge crowd of travelling Irish fans. And as I said, I have that good, exciting, professional style. It makes perfect sense to have me on the show.
Where are the talks at the moment then?
So there hasn't really been much. I got in contact myself with Matchroom yesterday via email. So look, they obviously know, they've seen me stuff online. They do know about it. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them.
Have you been in touch with Matchroom in the past? Is it just, did you just go onto their website, just get an email and just go at it off your own bat sort of thing? Or do you think that you've got an in there that they are listening to what you're saying?
I was supposed to go over, so Matchroom have a gym in London. I was supposed to go and train there just before Christmas. But things just didn't work out in terms of I was coming back from shoulder injury. It wasn't the right move to go over while I wasn't in the best condition. So I never went over. So they definitely do know about me. It's just trying to get the word out there and try and get a little bit of social media presence behind it. And like as I said, like from the outside to me anyway, it just makes perfect sense.
What would your message be to Eddie Hearn then if he was weighing up who to pick for his undercard?
Like, there is a big Irish crowd going over. They're going to be, I would imagine, the majority of the ticket sales. They're travelling across the Atlantic Ocean. Like, they've asked for me to be on the show, so it's up to him whether he listens or not. I think he will, because I'm not saying put me on the show because I'm an Olympian. I offer a lot more than that. Like, going forward, I'm actually looking to move to New York. So that's where I'm going to be basing myself. I'm going to be basing myself there with a full Irish team behind me, as in managers, trainers. It's all going to be Irish. So the vision for me is to have the whole Irish American community on the East Coast of America behind me. So it's not just I'm an Olympian, put me on your show. It's I can actually offer you something going forward after the show.
Just for a bit of background then, Emmet, when you say that they've asked for you to be on the show, who are you referring to there?
So there's been a big social media, I'd say, outcry over the last few days. Loads of people looking for me to be on the show, and then I've loads of contacts in New York. Of a lot of my friends live in New York. They are dying to get behind someone from Ireland over there in terms of boxing, because there's been people coming and going and fighting on the East Coast, but there hasn't been someone really living there and actually being in the Irish community day to day. From what I can gather from my friends in New York, they are dying to get behind someone.
And I guess the context of the main fight in the bill is somebody who came from the Olympic setup and has obviously made an unbelievable career for herself in the professional ranks as well. There is, I guess, a certain similarity to the storylines.
Yeah, there is a certain similarity. I'm 30. Katie would have gone professional at a similar age to myself. She came off the back of Rio. I'm coming off the back of Tokyo. So there is similarities there. Obviously, Katie has a lot more exposure and she's a lot more well known. But there is similarities. We both have a similar fighting style as well, where we're in exciting fights. We're coming forward and we're looking to put on a show for the fans. So there definitely is a lot of similarities there. And I think, like, in terms of personality as well, we come across well. We're both humble. We both come from a good background. Yeah, so there is a lot of similarities.
How strange is it training for a fight that you're not sure will happen?
Look, I'm going to have to train anyway. It's not like I'm not going to be training. It just, I suppose, it gives me a goal and a vision. Like, I'm all in on this. I believe it's going to happen. So that's why I've started my camp. Like, I don't want to, anything could happen. They mightn't put me on the show. Someone could get COVID. Someone could get injured. And they might need me on the show. Do you get me? Like, so
yeah,
I will be training as if I'm fighting on that. Even if I don't get the go-ahead for it, I'm still going to be looking towards that, because professional boxing, anything can happen.
To what extent is this a bit of a high wire act, Emmet, in terms of money and in terms of finances? Because obviously your story into Tokyo was well known, that you took out a credit union loan to keep the dream alive. You did qualify for the games in June, and the dream did eventually materialise, and it paid off, and you got to go to Tokyo, and I think everybody became so magnetised towards your story at that point. I guess what I'm wondering now is that essentially, from saying that you're 99% professional, does that mean you're not entitled to the amateur boxing funding, and essentially you need to find a new stream of income pretty soon?
No, I am on funding. I've got me funding for the next year.
Okay.
I'm guaranteed that funding because I got to the Olympics. But like, I haven't closed the door on amateur boxing in case something does go wrong if I try to go professional. It's just that my style of boxing isn't suited to amateur boxing.
Sure.
The way I would describe it is, you have running, you have 100 metres and you have a marathon. Usain Bolt is the best 100 metres in the world, but you wouldn't be great over a marathon distance. Professional boxing to me is like a marathon, where amateur boxing is like a sprint, and I'm suited to the marathon distance and not the sprint distance. So that's where I'm coming from about going professional. Do I go after the Olympics again? Whereas I'm not suited to that. I'm not suited to that style of boxing. So it's about making sense now of what I'm doing and not just going after the dream.
Is this your first year?
Back to what you said there on like the whole me backing myself, getting to the Olympics, and really investing myself. This is where I sort of, I'm similar to a lot of people that's living on the east coast of America. I'm talking about the Irish community. So these have all backed themselves and they've emigrated to a different country. I'll be doing something similar, and they can see themselves in my story. So that's why I think I'm going to be a big hit on the east coast. One of the reasons. For sure. Like, I mean, is that the thing that's motivating you, Emmet? Is it the sense of getting over there and being a success in the United States of America? Is that a huge carrot for you, as much as everything else in terms of the sporting success as well? Yeah, so like I also, as I said, I think like a lot of the people in New York will recognise my story and they have similarities to it. I went over in November for 3 weeks just to see if I liked the place and see if I got on with the people, and straight away I knew this is a place that I can make a future in. It's a place that I can get people to back me, and I can get the whole Irish community behind me, and I think we can start some sort of movement over there, because there hasn't really been, as I said, there hasn't really been an Irish boxer that has lived there full time. Not in the last 10 years anyway. And they are crying out for that. So I think it's going to be a real success. And I think having Matchroom on board, that like who has such a major influence in boxing, can really start that off. Have you eyed up potential opponents for the end of April? That would be down to Matchroom. As I said, I'll be making my debut. I'm not going to be fighting a superstar in my first fight. The way professional boxing goes is you might have one or two, I'd say, easier opponents at the start. But then again, as I said, I'm 30, so I want to hit the ground running, and after maybe 3 or 4 fights, really start facing stiff competition. We've seen on social media as well that Barry Keoghan is offering to walk you out on the night, so you've got pretty high profile support. Yeah, so like you're talking about Barry Keoghan, one of Ireland's leading actors, starred in the Marvel films, which is one of the most successful franchises in the world. So even by having him there, you're getting a new audience to the show that mightn't have been there. You're getting, because Marvel's is huge around worldwide. You're basically showing the Katie Taylor bill to a new audience. And then on top of Barry Keoghan, if I have him walking out, I'm sure I can get a top Irish artist to sing us out to the ring as well. So it'll be a real show, and something that not many people have done on their debut. As you can see from the way I'm talking, I'm very, very ambitious in the way that I'm thinking. And I think like if Matchroom are looking at this, they're saying, well, this guy is offering us something different. he's very, very ambitious. He's not just talking about fighting, he's talking about bringing the show along with him and getting a whole community of people behind him.
How much does it inspire you, the other stories that have come out of Ireland in the recent past and the likes of Matchroom have been head over heels for? Like, I mean, I'm just thinking of like even the Eric Donovan story. Like, I mean, after he was beaten, what was it, last summer, maybe the summer before, I get the years mixed up, and Eddie Hearn was just glowing in his praise of Eric Donovan as a man and as a boxer afterwards, that there is a huge market out there for stories like yours, for stories that people around the world will take and look to root for as time goes on.
Yeah, like Eric especially to me is an inspiration because obviously he has a backstory to himself, and that's something that's very important when you're going professional as a boxer. You do need a backstory behind you because you want to be more than a fighter. You want to be a personality, and you want people to recognise themselves in you so they can get behind you. And again, Eric went pro at a similar age to me, and he's a bit older now, but he's living a good, healthy life, and it shows that you can still have a career into your mid to late 30s. So he would be something that I would be eyeing my professional career off. And I keep in touch with Eric regular. He's a great person, and he's an inspiration, and like he's fighting now in the next few weeks, and he has another chance to, like, if he wins this fight, he's probably in contention near enough a world level, which is remarkable if you look at what he's done.
For sure. So what happens next, Emmet? I mean, hopefully over the next little while you do hear back from Matchroom and the wheels get in motion, but what will you be doing in terms of the things that you can control?
Yeah, so I'm going off to New York for the training camp now in 3 weeks. So for the next 3 weeks, I'm sort of in general preparation, and then that will leave me 8 weeks out from the potential fight that I want to be on. So then I'll really start to ramp training up. I'll start sparring. I'll be over in New York, hopefully, so I'll be getting around the Irish community and really trying to get a crowd behind me. Because realistically, for this fight, like, this fight sells itself. Like, I don't really need to sell tickets for this, but I want to show Matchroom the next show they can bring on the East Coast. I'm going to have a huge crowd behind me. So for me, the thing is to get the word out in New York. And I'm looking at so much ideas and doing that. As I said, I'm going to have an Irish background, like a background team behind me that have been very, very successful in New York and have brilliant connections within the Irish American community over there. So, yeah, the next thing for me is get the word out on the East Coast of America.
Just one last question, Emmet, and I think it plays into what you're just talking about there. How much has, not so much has your life changed, but how much has your perception of the support that you've got changed post the Olympic Games last year? Because I've mentioned it a couple of times, you've mentioned it a couple of times, that defeat to the Uzbek fighter in Tokyo, the reaction to your interview afterwards was absolutely massive. Like, did that change your perception of how much support there is out there for you and how much there will be there for you if this thing does happen in April?
Yeah, so I've obviously pre-Tokyo, I didn't actually realise like the amount of people that, one, knew me, and then two, were actually supporting me. And I think it's because I'm a normal person with a story behind me that people can sort of see themselves, or maybe they're working a job that they don't like and they took inspiration from that to maybe go down a different career path. Like, the support I've got is, honestly, it's been incredible. Like, I'm still getting stopped on the street by people saying, well done, the Olympics. Like, it was inspirational. And then online, I'm still getting like 2, 3, 4 messages a week of strangers saying, well done. I heard you on such and such. Your story is inspirational to me. I really wish I could do that. And in terms of what I've done, I basically changed the career path, and I went for my dream. It's something that everyone can recognise, because everyone can do that. It's not like I've done something exceptional. I basically changed my focus to something that made me happy and something that gave me a goal and a vision. As I said, it's something that every single person can do.
You must be absolutely unbelievably delighted that you did make that decision and that you did take that leap.
Yeah, I am, because like I've made the decision roughly 5 to 6 years ago now. I haven't looked back. I've got to experience some incredible things. I got to see some incredible places and meet some brilliant people. Like, the networking of people I have right now is unbelievable. I was talking to a friend last week and I said, I don't have much money, but I'm rich with the people that I know and the people that I have around me. And I truly believe that. I'm so lucky, but I wouldn't have all this at my feet if I didn't make that change.
Emmet, we wish you all the best. I presume social media is the best place for people to follow you to keep track of how this progresses over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and like, I just want to say thanks to everyone that shared it. Like, it's over the last few days, I've got so much backing and so many people text me saying, look, I really hope you get this. And I think they're very sincere about it. And so many people tagging Eddie Hearn, tagging Matchroom. It's unbelievable. And I'm just going to keep up on it because the kind of person I am is, if I'm going after something, I'm going after it 100%. And as I said, I offer Matchroom something going forward. I'm not asking to be on the show because I'm Irish and an Olympian. I'm asking to be on the show because I really believe I offer them something going forward. I offer them something on the East Coast of America, which they haven't really tapped into yet. They haven't had an Irish boxer consistently fighting on the East Coast that lives over there. It's a market that I think they can tap into. And maybe if they have me there, they can bring in fighters in maybe 5, 6, 7 years and they can keep this tradition going for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, well,
it's something that can really help propel Matchroom on the East Coast of America or in the Irish community.
Emmet, we wish you all the best over the next little while. Good luck with the training and hopefully things come together for the end of April.
Thanks for having me on.
Cheers. Emmet Brennan there, Irish Olympian, on the line. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out over the next little while. April 30th is the date of that card in Madison Square Garden. It's going to be a massive night and hopefully for a number of different levels. Right, we're going to be joined by Manchester City underage coach Jamie Carr after this break, but during that break we'll just get a quick taste of Keith Wood on Monday Night Rugby.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Top of the table, that's exciting. Bottom of the table, that's exciting. Like, that's the sort of football that you want to be. And these are the pressure games that in 15, 20 years' time I will look back on and I will remember. These are the important matches for me, not middle table teams.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance PLC.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Look, I just go back to what do we learn from it? If we go down to the idea is that we have to match, there's only 2 teams in the world really, England a little bit, but not at the moment. So you're talking South Africa and France, who are that powerful, oriented, and the blend of the pace and that, a little bit of Argentina, but they're not there that either yet. So there's 2 teams. Do we copy and emulate those teams? And I've heard some people say we really need to get bigger. We're not going to get any bigger. We just need to get smarter with it. How can we make that ball very fast? I thought Sean Edwards, it was all over his the defensive setup, that they picked the times that they wanted to counter ruck. They tried to slow down every ball just within the laws, right? They tried to slow everyone down, but every now and then they had a cut at an Irish ruck and it nearly went and became a penalty every time.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that. So this is the thing we're learning now, and we now have to figure out a way around it. So it's back over to the coaching team again to be able to think their way through this one.
I'm not repeating myself.
Kenny Cunningham is not repeating himself. He said we just had a great chat off air, which we were going to do on air once again, because we've got Jamie Carr academy coach at Manchester City, with us in studio. Jamie, how are you getting on?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
So you're here to talk about football, which you will get to in a moment, but most importantly, the incredible challenges that you're undertaking this year. So if you haven't heard about this, so you are currently training for the Marathon des Sables in the Sahara Desert. It's described as the toughest foot race on earth. That's at the end of March. And then in December 2022, because that's not enough, you're going to be taking part in a race across the Atlantic Ocean, rowing alone and unsupported. So you're going to be covering more than 3,000 miles from La Gomera on the Canary Islands all the way over to Antigua. And you're doing all these challenges in support of Cancer Fund for Children, which is a charity which supports children with a cancer diagnosis in Ireland and their families. The charity is fundraising at the moment to build a second therapeutic centre in Cong, County Mayo, and they need to raise over €12 million to do so. Just first of all, before we get into the challenges, why have you picked this charity? How close is it to your heart? And the work they do looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled across Cancer Fund for Children online, and straight away I was just drawn into the great work they do, some of the videos and stuff that I've seen on their website, and then having gone to visit Daisy Lodge and seen the great work they do, it's just been phenomenal. And they're supporting so many people across Ireland, and the need for the second short break centre is there. So we're doing everything we can now at the moment to fundraise and help them get where they need to get to for the second facility.
As I say, the end of March is when you do the Marathon des Sables. Where is the training at the moment?
The training's going well. I completed probably the longest run I'm going to do in training last weekend, which was 53k. So I've got the next month to sort of keep ticking along and add in some more big mileage weeks, but probably nothing as big as that. So feeling like I'm in a good place, and the key now is just make sure you stay injury free in the lead up to the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks.
What is the programme of the race?
So it's essentially 250 kilometres spread over 6 days. So you have more or less a marathon a day until you get to day 4. And then on day 4 it goes crazy and you do a double marathon. So you get through day 4, which is the big sort of hurdle, and then after that you have one more marathon and then you get your medal and you're done.
What kind of temperatures, Jamie? I'm getting dizzy even listening to you. What kind of temperatures are we talking about? I imagine they're pretty consistent. You can hang your hat in terms of what you're going to be experiencing over the course of those 6 days. What are you looking at?
Yeah, it's crazy. So last year I think they registered like 55 to 58 degrees, which is
Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I wish. So yeah, it's hard to get your head around.
But how do you got a full time? Sorry, I'm taking over now. You got a full time job. You're getting your training in, but surely in terms of you need to immerse yourself in those kind of conditions, you need to be trained in that for a significant amount of time. Surely you can't just drop yourself into that for the period of 6 days when you've been running up the M6 or M56 around Manchester or whatever, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Luckily enough, Man City have provided me with their heat chamber, so I can get somewhat acclimatised before I go out there.
Really?
But yeah, I've been working in the heat chamber at about 40 degrees at the moment, and that's tough. So I've got another...
Nice colour there.
Yeah.
Nice little spin-off. Yeah, that's the part. Really, and that's getting you where you need to be.
Yeah, there's going to be a certain level of unknowns and that you just can't prepare for, because the humidity out there and all sorts, and just the conditions, you're not going to be able to replicate, like sand dunes and all sorts. So basically you're doing what you can.
Sand dunes, camels. You can't replicate camels, can you?
No, exactly.
Manchester either, like, yeah.
Yeah, no, the British winter is not a good training venue for the Sahara Desert.
Did you ever see on the training pitch the lads actually think, no, you're a coach at Manchester City, or just that fellow who heads into the tank every morning for 6 hours?
Yeah, that lunatic they see, yeah, that's about it. Yeah, exactly. So the odd person comes in and out of the heat chamber and they're probably thinking, who is this crazy guy? But yeah.
Time, Jamie. I mean, do you have a spare? Do you have time? Do you have time to yourself for personal anything? Does anything else exist outside of your work and your training?
Well, this is a big hobby of mine, doing these sort of adventures, doing these challenges. So it's a hobby, but one thing I'm learning at the moment is running a campaign is almost a full-time job on its own, in terms of looking for sponsors, driving fundraising. So it's kind of like I've got my day job with City Academy, I've then got the training, which is my part-time job, and then I've got running a campaign on top of that. So yeah, it's all fun and games.
Whereabouts in the Sahara does the race take place?
So basically you fly to Morocco, and then they drive you 6 hours into the Sahara Desert in the middle of nowhere, which you don't get told where. And then on that day they'll tell you, right, from here on you're now doing X amount of kilometres in this direction, and that will be your finish mark. And it changes each time, so you don't know how long you're doing or exactly where you're going. So it's hard to prepare, really.
It's an unbelievable mental challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And dealing with the conditions. I'm not doing it to break any records or anything like that. It's more of a race just to survive and push myself really, and test myself. And I'm really looking forward to that sort of day 4 where it's 85 kilometres. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the day where you'll learn a lot about yourself, I can imagine.
Many runners, is there a team of many people? It's just yourself?
No, it's a race. This is a proper race. It happens every year. I think there'd be about 400 people do it each year from all over the world.
Right, good.
Yeah, 400 lunatics. So yeah, it should be fun.
Helps, doesn't it? I'd imagine, Jamie. Mentally, it helps having that, seeing bodies, people alongside you, as opposed to, I would have thought doing it by yourself in solitude is absolutely correct. Like just having people there and pushing yourselves like day in, day out.
They say that in some ways it's great to have the people around you to push you, but on the other hand, when you see other people dropping out, it can be also a negative.
Yeah,
like,
just dropping down the sides of those sand dunes, just going really down. Right to the end.
Exactly.
The one thing that is probably not very communal whatsoever is going to be when you hop into a boat then later this year and try and row across the Atlantic. Has the training started for that yet, or are you just waiting until the marathon is done?
Good question. Essentially, the funny thing is, and every time I tell people this, they laugh, I've never set foot in a rowing boat before in my life. I've never rowed a stroke in my life. And I still haven't got my boat yet. My boat's arriving in a couple of weeks' time.
Come on, Jane. Come on, now. Seriously.
Is there anything that are you on the rowing machine at least? Or?
Yeah, I did a solid 6 months block on the rowing machine about a year ago, and then since then it's just been focused on the run. And then once I get this run done, then we're into full-on training for the row.
So is it fair to say you've kind of compartmentalised it? You haven't thought of that mental challenge yet and what that entails?
Yeah, I'm just trying to give the Marathon des Sables the respect it deserves, because it's a really tough race. I don't want to, like, the row is the big one, but if I take my eye off the ball on that one, I might not make it. So it's really important to focus on this one, and then I have 6 months to really learn to row and get myself familiarised with the boat.
What part of the row, other than the physical stuff, are you perhaps least looking forward to? Like, what do you think will be the biggest challenge about being out there for so long?
Yeah, so people often say, like, being out there for 2 or 3 months on your own will be really difficult. That might be difficult. I don't know, because who's ever done that? Spent that much time alone? I don't know. It's probably because I'm not experienced in the ocean. I've got no maritime experience. Things like my first storm, like trusting the boat that it's going to get through this. Those sort of moments where you're like, well, this is ropey. It's all the sort of unknowns with the ocean I'm sort of not comfortable with yet. Like, you have to jump in the water and clean the bottom of the boat every week or so. Otherwise, like,
you gotta do chores as well.
Yeah, exactly.
God's sake.
So it's I'm not a fan of sharks. So if I see a shark and then they're expecting me to jump in and clean that boat, there's no chance.
There's obviously a very, very good cause for why you're doing this. Is there something inside in your own head about proving to yourself that you can do these two things in the same year on top of the brilliant work for charity that you're doing?
Yeah, I suppose it's just the whole element of challenge.
Yeah,
I really love challenges. Like, I've done loads of small little challenges over the last few years, which give me a purpose in the mornings when I wake up. This is what I'm working towards, which I lost when I finished playing football. So yeah, these challenges give me that, and they keep me on track, and they keep me focused and driven, really. So yeah, that's sort of what's driving me to get them done.
Where can people follow your journey and donate?
Yeah, so the nothingventuredcampaign.com is my website. The Nothing Ventured campaign on Instagram as well. And there's a donate page there if anyone would like to do so. And I'm still actively looking for sponsors to come on board as well to help me get to where we need to get to for Cancer Fund for Children as well. So any support would be massively appreciated.
Brilliant. And we'll tweet out links to those as well on our social media pages. Jamie, you mentioned there the football career, that looking for a new challenge after that stopped. So can you talk us through your own playing background?
Yeah, so fairly unglamorous, to be honest. Played in the League of Ireland.
The club.
Yeah. Played League of Ireland, and then when I was sort of in my early 20s, I realised that I'm not going to be able to have a sustainable career here.
What was your schoolboy club, James? I'm going to dig in here. Where'd you play?
Portmarnock.
Portmarnock. Yeah. Is that where you're? Portmarnock, Malahide. That's where you're.
So I live in Baldoyle. Yeah. So.
I got you. Like north side's on the up home. Yeah. I've had this conversation before. I've told you.
I know.
Emmet. North Strand.
Yeah.
All
north side.
I'm telling you, it's all happening. It's
happening. I live in the
happening.
north side, so I mean we're in good company here, right?
But yeah, so did that, and then got the opportunity to go to India and work for Reading in the middle of nowhere in the Himalayan mountains. So I took a gamble and went for that, and then on the back of doing 6 months out there, they offered me a full-time job in the academy. And I spent sort of 5 years at Reading before then moving to Manchester City.
Does that come as a result of coaching? Are you doing coaching badges? Are you how do you work your way into a point where Reading want you to go and coach abroad?
Yeah, so I'd done sort of my coaching badges previously before I went to England. So I went to IT Carlo and I did a lot of my coaching badges there, which was brilliant. But yeah, so they're important, but it's sort of learning on the job. You learn a hell of a lot more than those coaching badges, that's for sure.
What was the point of Reading having coaches in India?
Good question. Still don't know the full answer to that, other than we got sent to the northeast, which is on the Himalayas and the border of China. So very different to coaching in England. Like, we were just coaching disadvantaged children that had next to nothing, which sort of links into why I'm doing these challenges now and supporting children's charities, because I saw the impact that such small things can have on children. So yeah, long story short, but yeah, I ended up in India, 6 months there with no Wi-Fi, no internet, totally different way of life. And then
food, how'd you manage?
Like,
I was interested.
Yeah, no.
Belly belly and all that. How'd you manage?
Yeah, I got that. That's for sure. Yeah, first time I've ever projectile vomited was in India. So yeah, no, it was crazy.
You better get used to that before you get in the boat at the end of the year.
Yeah, seasickness and all that. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Life experience is unbelievable, isn't it? How old are you now, Jamie?
30.
30.
Scary, yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? You don't look back, obviously you're very much in terms of what's ahead of you and, ploughing ahead and stuff, but amazing life story so far. Fair play to you. Feel a bit humbled. What about yourself? No. If I'm feeling humble, you definitely must be feeling a bit
100%.
humble.
Back.
You're closeted childhood.
Yeah, it's a weird one. That point that you made there about, I guess, trying that trip to India sparks something in you that you want to try and do something good with your career. You want to try and give back a little bit. Like, what do you see? How does that change? Does a penny drop when you're on that trip to India, or you're not a trip to India, when you're literally working in India and immersing yourself there? Or was that something that you always had? Would you always have done something like this, or is that actually quite a pivotal moment in your own career?
Yeah, I suppose that sparked the interest in helping children. And then when I got my full-time job working with kids day to day who are trying to achieve their dreams and helping them along that journey, it's extremely rewarding, and you get a nice feeling. And I do feel like we're all important role models for the next generation, and we need to lead and do things in the right way. And if I can help a few children along the way while doing some things I really want to do, well, brilliant. And that's sort of where I'm at now.
How does Manchester City come up?
He was headhunted.
Yeah, of course.
You only take the best, Manchester City. We know that.
That's a very good point.
Good agent. No, ended up just applying for the job there, and got it. And 4 years later, still here. And hopefully, it's a brilliant place to work. It's one of the best academies in England and even across the world. So, what a place to learn! What a place to be surrounded by the best players and also the coaches as well. So, brilliant environment, and you learn so much every day, which is just an absolute privilege.
You're probably best suited to the kind of academy system you mentioned. Obviously, on a bigger level, you enjoy working with younger children, giving them obviously a bit of leadership, giving them a bit of direction and stuff like that. So no real ambition in terms of being, the next order senior manager or progressing along that kind of career path. You're kind of happy in the environment that you're in the academy, working with younger players and kind of developing younger players. Is that how you see yourself potentially going forward, or partly anyway? Yeah,
so I miss the competitive element of football as well. Right. Well, like, growing up in Ireland, it's all about winning, isn't it? And competition, and every weekend, that's what it's all about. And when you go to England in the academy system, it's very different.
Yeah, of course.
So I do miss that, and that's the spark that I do miss from playing. And once you get to sort of 18s up in England, competition comes back in.
Yeah.
So I would like to get back to sort of that at some stage, but I'm in no rush. I'm loving what I'm doing. So whenever that happens, that will happen. But I'm not in a race.
What age group are you mostly working with in the academy?
So I do the under-14s at the academy here, and in Reading I did sort of broad spectrum of teenagers, 12s to 16s. So yeah.
You say that there's no competitiveness until you get over the age of 18 there. Is that a little bit at odds with the idea of an academy in the first place, that the kids that are there are possibly there to, maybe from their parents' perspectives, to get a contract one day? So how do you manage to maintain that level of fun while also maintaining the fact that this is a pretty serious academy on a holistic sense?
Yeah, well, I think we all can get carried away at times, thinking, right, we're working at Man City, we're working with the best players, but also it's these kids' hobby as well. They're still kids at this stage, so you can never lose sight of the fact that it is children playing football at the moment. Yes, they're trying to pursue a career in the game, but they're not there yet. So fun is always an important element of every training session, of every part of it. But then it's just drip feeding the little bit more seriousness as it starts becoming a career, and things become a little bit more serious, because inevitably there's some big decisions that always happen at under 16s in the academy journey, and that's when people either get a shock or they get that sort of big boost and step up to the next level.
Kids must hate your warm-ups. 16 kilometre warm-ups
in the heat chamber.
Exactly.
18 times around the training ground. I've seen about 2 hours, lads. Warm yourselves up.
Manchester City going to the fittest academy in about 5 or 6 years' time. Is the academy at that age dipping into all areas of the world? Has scouting begun at that age, or is it more localised?
Well, traditionally it would have been a lot of European players would have been scouted, but now that Brexit's happened, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for the English academy system. I know at 16s and up we used to recruit quite heavily from Spain and other countries like that. However, I don't know if that's going to be possible now. And obviously we're seeing a lot of Irish players, young Irish players now going to Italy and the likes of that, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But certainly national recruitment in the UK is something that takes place sort of from 12 to 16 at City and a lot of the other top clubs in England.
So do you reckon that'd be even more concentrated now, Jamie? Clearly, for the reasons that you've said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, to be honest with you. I get a little bit quite excited about the prospect of, and I've got an Irish perspective, but in terms of, right, just a focus shift now in terms of let's get the best players from Europe as opposed to, right, let's broaden out in terms of the surrounding area, 50 miles from Manchester, where's the best kids?
Yeah.
Let's invest in these. Well, he mightn't be ideally what we're looking for, but he's all we've got. Let's work with him. Let's try and improve him. That's where Jamie comes in. Let's get the best, improve these players, so a lot more kind of localised. I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah, it will still be national recruitment, but like you said, it'll only be UK based, and potentially anyway. It'll be interesting to see how Brexit plays out and how much.
You don't see too many of the London boys come up the road into Manchester. That won't play down too well, will it?
You know what, actually,
with the Manchester supporters,
it's happening more and more, because the Northwest is just such a competitive environment for signing players. You got Liverpool, United, of course, all the clubs. So yeah, they're starting to branch out and get players from all over the country now, which is interesting.
Obviously Manchester City have done unbelievable work in building that academy over the last little while. What other clubs do you look at enviously? Or obviously, I mean, maybe you don't look at anybody enviously, but what are the other clubs with really good academy setups at the moment? Yeah, so the big clubs that you'd probably know yourselves, like Chelsea's very good academy, Liverpool, Man United, they're all good academies, and then you've got sort of the ones below that are pushing as well, like Brighton's and stuff are on the way up.
Southampton traditionally.
Yeah. So previously when I was working at Reading, they were quite good at producing players.
Not anymore, James. How you're saying standards have dropped the last 4 or 5 years for obvious reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
From what you're hearing there, Kenny, if you could turn the clocks back as a 14-year-old and go into this academy, would you take that?
I wish I hadn't brought Jamie in this morning. I was reasonably comfortable with me law, from 20 to 35 before Jamie came in this morning. Start rattling off his achievements.
How do you think you would have got on under Jamie?
Oh, as a coach?
Yeah,
he would have got a bit out of me as a young player. He would have got a bit out of me. I would have responded to that. He's obviously very competitive, very I wouldn't say kind of demanding, but kind of just his own kind of mentality. I think I would have responded to that, even in terms of what he's committed to off the pitch. That I would have found that I would have been kind of drawn to that. However, the other side of 30, he's the last coach I would have wanted, to be honest with you.
I'll look
the very last, I mean, totally boxed off to him in terms of most of what he was saying. But no, I think life experience is a big thing, actually. Just listen to you there, Jamie. You're talking about young Irish players, Brexit and all that type of thing. So now Irish players will, rather than that conveyor belt to England, lower division English sides, might be a little bit more imaginative now in terms of players that go to maybe Scotland, etc. But Europe, maybe Belgium, France, Scandinavia, these might be options now for young Ireland players. And I think in a funny way, people might initially think, oh, they're out there, it's almost a step down. But I kind of see it a little bit differently. I never had that experience. I don't have too many regrets. I don't look back. But I do think when I do look back, was there any stage in my career, I never thought that way, where I could have thought maybe taking a big sidestep, you know, maybe thought of maybe a couple of years abroad, experience something different, a different type of football, different country, different language, different culture, how that would have affected me, like not necessarily earning necessarily a lot more money. So I think young Irish players putting themselves going down that particular road, I think that could help them in a load of different ways, not just in terms of their football and development, but actually as people, in terms of their mindset, what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, a bit like you've done in terms of that trip to India. You're saying that was a pivotal moment for you in terms of visually what you saw, how it affected you. Obviously you had that within you anyway, don't get me wrong, but those type of things I think are very interesting. I think that could be very exciting for a lot of Irish players, you know, in terms of being pushed into these other areas, maybe in continental Europe and different experiences. I think potentially that could be a very good thing, and a load of different, not just purely through that narrow lens in terms of purely your football and development is going to make you a better player. I think a lot of things come into it. You'll know better than me what makes you a better player: mindset, psychology, you know, how you are, how you develop, how you mature, you know, all of those things I think make you a better player, but also a person as well, because you've got to live most of your life. You know, we all finished at 35 years of age. You've got the rest of your life ahead of you, so you got to be prepared for that as well.
For sure. I think it like you said, how amazing would it be for a young Irish person now to end up in Italy or anywhere across Europe now, and even further afield. Who knows what would happen? But there's all sorts of brilliant experiences that could come from that, even if you don't end up making it as a footballer, because a lot of them won't. And I think one of the big things I always try to say to young Irish lads going over is, yes, you want to dream and strive to be a professional footballer, but there's also that realisation that it won't happen for everyone. And you can't just hang your hat on that.
Got to say, like,
the vast majority won't happen.
You are working with kids who, the vast majority of which, won't actually get a professional contract.
Yeah, I think at Man City actually they all will.
The exception.
Okay,
You're probably the exception. Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
But generally, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Particularly working under Jamie for a few years. He doesn't want to say, I'm going to say it for him.
Of course.
Going to say it for him. Go ahead, Jamie, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I think most of the 16-year-olds that we either sign or release will go on to still probably get a pro or at least a scholarship somewhere else. But for the young Irish lads, it can't be the all or nothing move, because that will just crush them if it doesn't happen. So it's just sort of...
Give us a name. Any Irish, any couple of lads over there down the...
There's a couple.
Chain. Showing a bit, giving a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a few. There's one that just went over to the Irish under-16s last week, so we'll see how he gets on. I
don't expect you to name drop, and maybe puts a little bit too much pressure.
Yeah,
pressure on them. But yeah, there's a couple of lads there. I've got a chance.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of good ones, and hopefully more soon as well. You never know.
Did you work with Lee Carsley for a while at the academy, or did your times miss each other?
Yeah, missed each other. He had left a year or two before I arrived.
Mark Kennedy.
He left the year I arrived. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
Any link up at all, or any conversation with first team coaches or anything like that?
So basically the academy's split in two, so you don't see them that often.
Yeah.
However, you'll just see them in passing. They'll say hello maybe. There's a few players at the moment doing their coaching badges at the moment, so they come and work with the academy players sometimes as well, which is good. So that's sort of how you see them more than anything.
You show them how it's done, like Gundogan comes over and you say, yeah, just sit yourself down there, just watch how it's done.
Yeah, you've seen that.
Valentino, bit of quiet, I'm doing a session now.
We put out the cones there.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Taking for a warm up.
Yeah.
No, they're super respectful. Yeah, coaching is so different to playing, and I think they understand that. It's a totally different kettle of fish.
What's really interesting is that if you were coaching that same age group in Ireland, you'd probably have quite a different outlook, or maybe your contemporaries now have a different outlook, because at underage level at schoolboy football it is very competitive, whereas you're coaching not towards competition but more towards, I guess, participation and self-improvement. So can Ireland learn a thing or two from that academy mentality in the UK?
Yeah, it's that debate that we all talk about. Is it better to be that side with the competitiveness, or this side where it's focused on development? I actually watched an Irish game on Sunday, and I spent the first 5 minutes just laughing, because it was just so different to what I'm used to, where the parents on the sideline were really animated. You'd never see that. The players and the managers were screaming at the referee. You'd never see that in England. And I just couldn't get my head around it, because I'd been over there for so long and not seen an Irish game, and it was players saying, like, hook it and clear it. We just don't see those things as often, which is brilliant.
But there is that criticism, sorry I'm jumping again, in terms of the academy system. It's been there for some time, you're probably aware of, and maybe too much of a sterile environment for players. I've spoken to people, coaches and stuff, and even in terms of 23 league over there. And where's the point? You instill that will to win, kind of win at all costs. Yes, you're looking at player development, you're looking to improve players, and you're building towards something. But the here and the now, to actually win, to have that mentality, go onto the pitch and win at all costs, and to kind of instill that into play. Do young players still have that, or is that kind of almost beaten out of them, or it's not encouraged enough when they come into the system? Because a lot of the young kids, as you know, probably come in 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age. They come in, if you're still being told the same things year in, year out, forget about winning the game, don't worry about winning. No, it's about you getting better. It's about the team comes first, the patterns of play, this is what we got to concentrate on. The winning will come later. Don't worry about the winning so much. Preaching maybe too much of that, whether potentially that's the right thing. I find that very interesting. No right or wrong, you know what I mean? How do you see it?
It's a massive debate. Personally, I think we need to add more competition in, and luckily at Man City, because we go on so many trips abroad to these tournaments, we actually get a decent level of competition. However, when I was at Reading, we didn't, because we couldn't afford to go on those trips and stuff like that. So it's those tours and those experiences where you have to win as well that are vital. And I would actually say kids nowadays are just as competitive as we were growing up.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't get a sense of that? You still
I still see that, particularly when they are just asking, when's the next cup game, lads? When's the next tour we're going on? Because that's the highlight for them, the chance that they can go and showcase in the moments of pressure and go and win a trophy. So I totally agree. Sometimes you look at under 23 games in England and you're like, this is miles away from what the first team looks like.
Well, let me ask you this, talking about straitjacking players, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you think to a certain extent coaches can have the straitjacket put on them in the academy, particularly at a club like Manchester City, where you get a sense of, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of how every team plays from the first team down through the academy, everybody has to play the same way, and you would be, as a coach, you would be dictated to in terms of how you set up your team to play, the type of information you're giving players, the type of patterns of play, that you're not almost encouraged, but you're actually dictated to, that you have to roll out onto the training pitch. Is that the case? You think that's a good thing in terms of coach development, in terms of improving you as a coach, rather than being an environment where first team managers say, well, your team, set them up as you want, play as you want, play whatever system you want, style of play, it's up to you.
Well, it's amazing because there's a famous quote at the start of Moneyball that says it's amazing how much you don't know about the game you've played your whole life. And when I went to Man City, that was what it was like, because their style and the detail that they go into in terms of the 4-3-3, it just blew me away, if I'm totally honest. And I learned so much. I'm still learning so much. So that was really interesting. But also there's plenty of freedom within the framework to create your own sessions, do whatever you want to do, as long as you're working alongside the syllabus and the philosophy. So it's been extremely beneficial for me, for sure, because like I said, I've just learned so much.
That's really interesting, because I think obviously, Kenny, you're speaking from a place of knowledge there, but I think the rest of us possibly aren't quite aware of what exists there. So there's like a blueprint. This is the Manchester City way, essentially.
Yeah, so there's an academy curriculum and philosophy that this is how we want to play across all the age groups, and this is what it should look like. Yeah.
And what did you learn about the 4-3-3 then?
Oh, they're all the hidden secrets I'm not allowed to talk about.
Blue book.
Won't make any sense to him. He just forget it straight away. In one ear and out the other.
Football experts like Kenny here to learn.
Oh dear, unless you got a slit through his hand.
We'll need to get the tactics board out, I think.
Fascinating stuff. So, over the next little while, are you in your happy place at the moment? Is it a sense that, listen, I'd love to kind of progress through this academy, or how do you see things going career-wise?
Yeah, certainly I would love to progress through the academy, and like I said, I'd love to work in competitive football one day, whatever that will look like, whether that's a coach or assistant, who knows. But this year I'm fully focused on my challenges, because this is it's going to be a hell of a year, an exciting year.
Sorry, Kenny, do you have one more thing?
Selfie stick, yeah. What? Surely. You're going to run. It's not that. Consider what you're doing. A lightweight selfie stick so we can all follow you. Surely.
100%.
I'll tune into
do all that. There's actually room on the boat for one more, Kenny, if you fancy it.
You don't want me on that boat, would you? Mentally, that would be too much for you. And I wouldn't be clean at the bottom of the boat either.
Jamie, remind us how people can find out more information and donate as well.
So nothingventuredcampaign.com for anyone that would love to donate. That would be super. And Nothing Ventured Campaign on Instagram for anyone that wants to follow the journey, see what my training looks like, and follow me.
See what you look like with your top off the home. Hey, Jelly Bean, if you're looking $1 million home.
100%.
Yeah, well, good luck with that training. Good luck with social media. You've got a new follower here anyway. Somebody's going to be watching all of the selfie stick.
I'm going to try. Wouldn't be my thing now. I'm going to try.
Yeah,
Owen,
you've prompted him.
Point me in the right direction.
Prompted him to become.
Why can't we follow him on the show? Surely you can pop him up for 5 minutes.
You up for that?
Most Mondays are.
100%.
Yeah.
Get you on between marathons and between days of rowing or whatever.
The weight drops, he gets more gaunt as the weeks go on. We'd be saying, yeah, you look great, Jane. He goes off air, we'd be saying, looks dreadful, doesn't he? Oh, the state of him. God, there. He's a shadow of the man who was in the studio.
Take a picture of that now, and after it'll be a very different man. The tan will be gone, I can tell you that much. You've been listening to Jamie Carr. He is an academy coach with Manchester City and has got a fairly busy 2022 ahead, to say the least. OTB AM has been brought to you this morning by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Thanks a million for coming in, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio today from 1 o'clock. We've got OTB Gold, which is Barry Ryan talking about his book The Ascent. The Dadcast is coming up at 3 o'clock, a career retrospective with Matt Holland at 4 o'clock. And then the life and times of Johnny Kilban, the boxer, is the story on OTB Gold at 6 o'clock.
I better get a mention. Matty Holland, 4 o'clock. I'll be disappointed if I don't.
Tune in, find out.
You've got to be prompting him at least.
I'm sure you've got the OTB Sports app downloaded on your phone, Kenny. You can find out for yourself at 4 o'clock.
He looked after me as well, Matt. Bit of a screen in front. Good lad, Matt. Good lad.
that ties the whole show together nicely.
He was sick of the sound of my voice as well at the end of his international career. I'll tell you that.
If you're looking for more content and all that goodness about screening the relationships between midfielders and the defenders, scroll back to the top of the show. Some great stuff from Kenny Cunningham. Tomorrow morning, Kenny's not in, but we'll try our best to make it up for you. We've got Joey Carberry with us. We'll have Champions League reaction and much more. Right now, we're bringing you some of last night's show. Tara Sullivan reviewing the Super Bowl.
Let's talk Super Bowl. Hollywood is happy. LA Rams 23, Cincinnati Bengals 20. The final score. Winning touchdown came with 1 minute and 25 seconds left on the clock. Sean McVay, at 36 years old and 20 days, becomes the youngest Super Bowl coach in history. Super Bowl winning coach, obviously, in history. And I think we had a halftime show, which is going to be remembered as well. Tara Sullivan of the Boston Globe is with us. Good evening, Tara.
Hello, how you doing?
Very well. So, LA Rams, were they deserving winners, would you say?
Oh, I would say so, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a very entertaining game. So one of those where there's been some controversy, I'm sure you're aware, of some of the calls late in the game going against the Bengals, and maybe that would lead people to question the fairness. But there also were a few that went the other way that benefited the Bengals. So in the end, I would say, yes, a deserving winner.
We had Mike Carlson on our morning show, and he was saying it was a messy kind of a game, in some respects defined by mistakes every bit as much as brilliance.
Well, I think that's true of any football game. I'll be honest with you. There's, because the mistakes, the turnovers, things like that are generally, that important, and they lead to either, taking points off the board or putting points on the board for the opponent. So, there were some mistakes, not only by the players, but by officials, but there also were some great plays. And I think, Matt Stafford as the quarterback of LA and his backstory, really toiling for so long in anonymity in Detroit and then going to the Rams really for this express purpose and being able to deliver as he did with that final drive. I think that to me makes it feel, well played and really deserving to his credit.
So there are various aspects to American sports which are so alien to us. One of the chief ones being franchises say goodbye to a city and we're out of here. And so the Rams have spent 20 years away, and then 6 years ago they came back home. What does that do to the local fan base? I mean, are there a bunch of very upset people in LA saying you can't just arrive back after 20 years and expect us to be on board with that? Or is it kind of taken as a, hey, look, we understand, that's just how things work?
Well, LA is an interesting case in point because sometimes they're known for having fervent fan bases, but most times not. LA is Hollywood, and so it feels like, the Rams even struggle to some degree to have a home field advantage, that even when they hosted San Francisco, would they even feel the home field advantage? So LA sometimes feels a little different, but it's interesting that you kind of put it toward the LA fan and them coming back, because really it's the St. Louis fan, I think, that's truly upset today in seeing the Rams win, because they're the ones who feel wronged that they took the Rams in, gave them a stadium, had them for a while, and then they just up and left again. So there is no love lost for the owner of the Rams, who I know your football fans are well aware of, Stan Kroenke. So, it's kind of both sides carry some, frustration. And you're right. It is a weird kind of a setup that's unique to American sports, because it has happened in many cities. Not only, it just happens that this one is a Super Bowl winning team.
Yes. And when you say St. Louis gave them a stadium, I suspect you do mean that quite literally. Oftentimes these stadiums are demanded by the franchise, as in, well, you pay for the stadium and we'll grace you with our presence.
Absolutely, and that's a big element of why these Rams are back in LA, is they played in this incredible new SoFi Stadium, which the NFL helped them secure to be able to move back. They actually share it with the LA Chargers, as I'm sure you know. But I didn't go to the Super Bowl. I watched it like you guys, but I was at that stadium earlier this season for a Patriots game there, and it's, it is incredible. It's a marvel of modern technology and stadium building, but they are absolutely used as recruiting ploys, and they often cause great upset in the host cities, because if they end up taxpayer funded, which they very often are, you can imagine the non-sports fan is usually not as interested in having these things built in their areas. So the places where it's maybe been built by the ownership money, there might be a little bit less resentment. But the stadium issue is a very ongoing and large one among American sports fans.
And I'm sure they have, or maybe they haven't. Has St. Louis replaced the Rams? No, they are bereft. They got nobody.
St. Louis does not have football at the moment.
Okay.
American football.
So they just...
That's what happened. Like, there are famous ones you could look through: the Cleveland Browns leaving in the dead of night, the Baltimore Colts. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens were another. Like, there's just been, and now you have it with the Raiders, right? They've ping-ponged between Oakland, LA, now Las Vegas, where they're starting up. So it's just, it's just like you say, it's an interesting sort of very American problem.
So do people in St. Louis just hate watch the LA Rams? That's their main interest in
for
NFL.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. There's so many interesting characters and storylines around this Super Bowl. Let's start with Sean McVay, who disgustingly for the rest of us at the age of 36 and 20 days is now the youngest NFL Super Bowl winning coach in history. So he arrived 6 years ago. Can you chart the job that he's done here, how impressive this guy is? What's his secret sauce?
Yeah, I think, he has this ridiculous memory. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the video clips of him. You could ask him about a game that he coached, 8 years ago, and he can describe a play to you from the third quarter, like actually describe, the specifics of the play. So clearly he must have some kind of photographic or some kind of really valuable memory. So when it comes to I think designing plays and things like that, that certainly helps him. The most interesting part to me, is that he reached a Super Bowl once before 3 years ago and lost it, and was pretty open about, blaming himself for the mistakes that he made and getting out coached in that game, which granted was against Bill Belichick, who's the game's best coach ever. But still, I think it's a real credit to him that he really seemed to learn from that experience and didn't have the sense of maybe panic or nervousness that characterized their play a few years ago. So in that regard, I think he's going to be around for a while, at least his coaching ability. I don't know about the roster of the Rams. They really went all in money-wise and everything to put this particular team together. So I don't think they're kind of in that position to become a dynasty in any way, but we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past McVay now.
Well, on McVay staying around forever, so at 36 years of age, that would have been my presumption, and yet I was watching the morning football show over in the States this morning, and one of the panellists is very good friends with McVay and passed up on the opportunity to go to the team party afterwards, but showed a screenshot of them having a FaceTime chatting. But he was saying, don't be surprised if McVay walks away or considers walking away. And I know The Athletic, I think, wrote a piece suggesting the same, that maybe Sean McVay might just head off into the sunset here as a bit of a legend and earn multiples of millions sitting in a TV studio. That would be astonishing.
It would be. Wow, that would it would be a huge story if that happened, because you just don't see that happen very often. They're all more often talking about legacy and wanting to stick with it. But it is an interesting distinction with some of these younger coaches that we're seeing in the United States in football, that maybe they're not only all about football. Like the greatness of a Belichick, right, is just he's a football guy through and through, and he's all these different stops and different jobs, and he just loves football. He's going to be 70 years old and no desire seemingly to stop. Whereas some of these younger guys, maybe it is an issue of, I don't want to be defined. I don't want to have my entire life built around football. It is an incredibly demanding position, as it is with any professional sport. But American football is a very different kind of work week because you have to do a very specific game plan every week for your opponent. Like that's different than even, the 4 or 5 major sport, whatever, all our major sports in America. Like, once you have your baseball team ready to play, they're pretty much ready to play no matter who's on the other side. They might get a scouting report about a specific pitcher, but it's not anything like you have to do for football. So that would be a hell of a story, and I'm sure he'd be great on TV, but I'll believe it when I see it because it's just not something we're accustomed to seeing.
No, I'd be amazed. As an aside, I guess one of the reasons that story is even potentially possibility is just how much these guys get paid on American TV. I appreciate America's a big country and it's a big audience and there's a lot of money swirling around. But is it commented upon over there, the staggering sums that the co-commentators are getting? Like we're talking, you can hit me with some figures, I'm sure, but well over 10 million is like, anything beneath that's chump money.
Yeah, the Tony Romos and the guys that really make that transition. I understand what you're saying because from an outside view, it just seems absurd on its face, right?
Well, sorry to interrupt. Romo's on $17 million a year.
Yeah, so it seems crazy, but I guess my usual answer is like the money is there in the game, so it's got to go somewhere. Like the amount of money that the NFL generates, it never seems to slow down. Like it just, even as they went through issues with Colin Kaepernick or, backlash and social justice initiatives, whatever it might be, they're being sued by one of their own coaches now over racial discrimination and hiring, and nothing seems to ever really stop the juggernaut. So the money is there. It's kind of the same way I feel about the players. Like they should more than get their fair share. And so the media being another element of it, I can assure you I'm not in that category, but I get what you're saying, that these former coaches and former players that have shown an ability to explain the game. Listen, we talked in a conversation about John Madden. Like John Madden really changed that, making that such a coveted job to be able to explain the game for the layperson in a way that they can feel like, I can talk like a coach now, like that they can really understand the game. So, I guess that's my usual answer is if the money's there, why not let the media have part of it too?
Odell Beckham Jr. we should talk about. So people will remember his rookie season because he had some touchdowns which went viral and there's a one-handed catch and wow, superstar's born. And he's called Beckham. That's kind of a weird thing and, all this stuff. And here we are, I would say midway through the season, and the perception of Odell Beckham Jr. would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but style over substance, never quite delivered. And last night, injury in the second quarter notwithstanding, is a night of redemption for him?
Oh, for sure. I don't know if his reputation was as much style over substance, because I do think there was always belief in the substance of Odell Beckham's talent, his skill set, his talent, even in around injury and that. Like, I don't think it was style over substance as much as it was like locker room killer, like team, like he had gained a reputation as too much of a distraction. And the Giants, to their discredit, I think couldn't really figure out how to keep him sort of in the program. And then their general manager at the time kind of made it sound like he was the culture problem. And that certainly followed him to Cleveland and then to kind of, ask his way out of there as well. But what I will say in defense of Beckham, as somebody who I covered for years when I was working around the Giants, really his frustrations, yes, when he was young, it was immaturity, and he did really, he did things that did not help his reputation, whether it was, pretending to pee like a dog in the end zone as a celebration, or kicking net on the sideline because he was frustrated, punching a hole in the wall after a playoff loss in Green Bay. Like, that stuff is hard to excuse, but it was very, very much tied to just frustration with not winning.
Right.
And I think that's really what motivated Odell all along, was to find a situation where he could win. And why I think it was redemptive for him last night is that had he not gotten hurt, I mean, he was on track for, 100 plus receiving yards. I mean, I even turned to people that I was watching the game with, like when he started out that well, I thought, like, this is classic Odell. Like when he gets going well, that momentum, he's going to be unstoppable. And really, it was only because of the injury that he wasn't. So I think what we saw in the post game with his, overwhelmed by emotion, I thought that was really authentic from him, because winning is really, that is what really motivated him, even as he took the missteps along the way.
Yes, it was really notable. As soon as he went off, Matthew Stafford was looking around, and really Cooper Kupp was about his only option, and he didn't have many others, and it was those two which drove things home. We should mention the Bengals as well. Joe Burrow's been kind of superstar this year, and how he would go was obviously a big factor in last night. He arrived looking very sharp, saw the outfit. I think he's a confident young man, we can safely say that. He was sacked a Super Bowl record 7 times, but still, Tara, I'm seeing the consensus seems to be he did okay, played pretty well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't think anybody thinks today that Burrow is the reason they lost. Even as, I think a lot of people thought the minute he got the ball in those final, whatever it was, minute and a half, that he absolutely had the ability to drive them for a game-tying field goal, at least, if not a touchdown. But that poor, the offensive line just couldn't protect him. And you saw Aaron Donald, was like a one-man wrecking crew, and really could have, should have, been the MVP, maybe, I don't know, of the game. Burrow is a star already, and it feels to me like this guy is the limit. It reminds me a lot of Dan Marino, one of the most famous American quarterbacks who got Miami to a Super Bowl in his second year, and unfortunately never got back despite a Hall of Fame career. So I do hope that the Bengals can kind of find the pieces so that this wasn't a one-off, because I think Burrow is great for the league, and I think he's a lot of fun, and the connection he has with Jamar Chase, his young receiver, former college teammate. Like, to me, that's a very exciting ground level feel for something that could be around for a while, and particularly with a franchise that was a doormat for so long, that it makes it kind of fun if they're good.
Okay. Halftime show will be remembered. I think that's fair to say. So we had Dr. Dre, we had Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, and 50 Cent. Thought personally doing quite well to make it into that group, but 50 Cent was in there as well. I was very funny on Twitter because the pictures being painted from around America and beyond were children of a certain age, open-mouthed, looking at their parents in their late 30s, early 40s, suddenly bursting into word-perfect hip-hop. And, I think the parents also realising, oh my God, we're so old. So there was that, which was kind of funny. But Eminem took the knee, and the NFL have been at pains to come out and deny that they told him not to do that, and they're stating that they saw him do that in rehearsals all week, and this was very much fine with us.
I'm not sure I believe that part. I would have no problem believing that the NFL asked him not to do it, and he did it anyway. I think it was really a cool cultural moment. Like you said, there were plenty of jokes. Was it the millennials or the Gen Xers? We're obsessed in this country with naming everything. So who really vibed the most with that halftime show? And it was a very cool opportunity to highlight and showcase a genre of music that is enormously popular, but just kind of hadn't been in that sort of mainstream spotlight of something like a Super Bowl halftime. So I thought that was great. To me, to celebrate what is known as emblematic of Black culture in this country is far more powerful than writing end racism in the end zone or something. So for me, I think it had a lot of resonance for people, and it was largely well received.
Yeah, because Eminem, I think. Oh, sorry, Tara. You dropped out briefly. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, I can't remember. I kind of got on my tangent about the relevancy and what was the other point we were making about the halftime show.
Well, we were wondering if the NFL were thrilled to see Eminem, who has previously embraced Colin Kaepernick in his lyrics in previous songs. Yeah. We were wondering how thrilled they were about that on the most watched moment of the season in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they weren't thrilled, but at the same time, they can't be surprised. Like, they know they're in the crosshairs of a cultural conversation. So, like I said to you, I have no problem believing that they said, please don't do it. but I have no problem believing that they were crossing their fingers behind their backs when they said, please don't do it. Because I just think the NFL is the ultimate example of there's no such thing as bad publicity. Because like we talked about, there's nothing that seems to, stem or curtail their popularity regardless. So even when they're caught in the middle of these, whatever it might be, controversial moments, it just never really affects their popularity. So in the long run, I don't think they'll have any issue with it.
No, I suspect you're right. Tara Sullivan of the Boston Globe. Thanks so much, Tara.
Thank you. On to whatever's next, months before we're back to football.
Yeah, we'll find something. Thanks, Emil.
All right, take care.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new